Hey everyone, it is your good friend, the safety doc from down here in the North Star recording studio, where apparently now that I've turned 50, I have shrunk down in my chair here. So let me try to fix the camera. I was messing around with a two camera setup today because I have actually a newer camera that I never liked as something. I don't know if this show's still live here. So, all right. So there we go. So, yeah, I had anyway, kind of a two camera configuration going on. I don't think I would ever do that like during a show, but I um, want to do one of my shows. I'll get into that a little bit. Like no one's watching anyway, right? But um, what I'm going to do is have the camera over here, so it's pointing at me, and the fireplace being back, and then the other shows be kind of straight on. So well, welcome to absolutely nobody. Nobody is watching right now. So let's can I what is this? Oh, it lets me share it. So let me do that. So let's do this. Live now. Dun, dun, dun. All right. So all right, we'll see if anybody shows up here. Notifications. Dave Weasel did. He's a hell of a guy. Thank you, Dave. Oh my God, with 546,000 subscribers. Wow. Um, Thank you, Dave Weasel. So emotional support dogs. Okay. Wow. Um, okay. God, I just got that from Dave Weasel. It's a like, it's not a share. So I would like to get the blue or not, yeah, the blue check here at some point. But anyway, I know there's like work to go into that. I don't know if I want to put the work into trying to get it. I think when the book comes out, like I could, as a content expert, right? School and community safety, I could make a pretty strong argument, but I'm not sure how they would. Twitter would do that, and it seemed like you had to have a pretty like consistent presence, and I don't know. It's like tenure in a university, like trying to get tenure. Um, you always got to be publishing and publish or perish. So, which anyway, so somebody is watching. I don't know who that is. Um, so, oh my goodness, it's Marty. Gosh darn it, Marty. Um, well, thanks, buddy. And cool. Appreciate it. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. Thanks, Marty. Um, so cool, cool, cool. So we've got a couple things to um all right. All right. So hey, it's our good friend Solitude Surfer is in the house too. Happy birthday, Doc. You'll yes, yeah, getting up there, buddy. Um, so and again, welcome Marty, welcome Solitude. So looks like people are rolling in the house here. And so let me tell you what's up. So yesterday was my birthday. So I officially now am 50, and it's funny to be eligible for the AARP card. You have to be 50 or older. So they've been trying to recruit me on board. So which I haven't done, and I really don't have any intent. Although the discounts, right? And I think places we visit, especially in summer, um, because kind of older people like visit the places we visit, have discounts for the ARP card. It's cheap; it's like $10, but I'm not sure. There was a reason, um, as I was initially looking into the organization, where I was like, I'm not sure. I don't want to be a part of this. Like, I don't want to. It was a trade off. Like, is the $10 a year worth of discounts? But so, uh, Marty, I would watch more, but most of the time I'm watching the Reckless Doc podcast. Whoa, okay, Reckless Doc. Hmm. Competing podcast. So, yeah. So, what I'm going to talk about tonight, and this is an informal show. The reason is I've been stacking firewood all day, so I have. I oh reckless. I get it now, Marty. So it's good, man. It's good. So I heat my house with firewood, and today was like 70 degrees on a November 8th, which is pretty unusual for Wisconsin. But I have had firewood delivered this weekend. Like that was kind of a scheduled thing. Um, and in order, so here's s- so the guy I order firewood from was a great guy, and but I'm like his smallest client as far as like the amount of firewood purchased. So um, and it's still a pretty substantial amount of firewood, right? Because I heat my house with wood. But he supplies to like pizza places in the big metro area, about 40 miles from me. So he has this regular scheduled thing where he's always taking firewood down for their you know wood fired pizza stuff. And then he has bigger clients like like $1 million home plus these big clients who they pay him to like stack the firewood, deliver and stack and all this other stuff. Um so one of the things is like to continue to make it worth his while. Like I don't need quite as much firewood, and I got all thrown out of whack when that tree fell on my house in June of 2020, because then the tree paid the price and got, sawed up, and I burned it. But then it threw off my firewood, right? Because I suddenly had, a couple cords of wood from that. And because it was June, by, December, it was dry because I had it inside and ready to go. But then, so I had extra firewood from what typically got delivered, didn't get burned. And I don't like to carry firewood forward from one season to another, because if there's anything that's in the firewood, I don't want that in my house. And granted, like, yeah, I mean, pressure treated, rafters and stuff like that, you're going to be okay as long as you don't, and we don't have termites around here, but I don't want to deal with that, right? I don't want anything that's in that. So I want to be able to burn out the firewood. So I couldn't do that last year because it warmed up kind of faster than I expected. And so I had extra firewood. So I got my normal firewood delivery this year, and I've been like just so it's in my garage, and then I have take it downstairs bag by bag and stack it. And I'm running out of room because I have last year's, some four cords left from last year. And now I have like the center area of my furnace room where I'm free stacking, and that's there's a little bit of work to do with that, because I don't have any walls to support the wood, so I have to crisscross everything, and because of the pile's got to be stable, right? Like I can't have it fall down because there's stuff kind of all around it. So it's starting to grow in height. Probably I'll probably top it off. Um, at about maybe 6 feet, maybe 6.5 feet. But it's like 10 foot long now, and I've got 3 rows wide. And so by tomorrow night, and by the way, I'll be on DLD Dark tomorrow night. So by tomorrow afternoon, I should have everything down. But I'm 50, so it, it wears me down. I'm just not used to hauling, the wood and stacking it, and kind of all of that stuff. I've done that before, right? But now it's like free stack. It just takes more time. You gotta just kind of really pay attention to what you're doing. So I'm something kind of tired. I'm kind of worn down by that. Plus, I taught all day Saturday. I guess, like, to really explain. So so Friday, stay up bacon show for me is at 10 p.m. Central. So from at 8 o'clock, but so to hang out a little bit in Bacon show, and then go to bed, get a couple hours of sleep, and get up and drive 90 miles to the university where I teach on the weekend, and then have class until 5, and then drive home, and then the next day was my birthday. So Sunday the 7th was my birthday, which was awesome weather, like the best weather I can remember for my birthday. I was When I was a kid growing up in northern Wisconsin, the temperature was always typically is in like snowy weather and cold. Like some of my birthdays were like 0 degrees, or um, it was just it was cold. I mean, that's just the way it was. Um, so to have a birthday where it was almost 70 degrees and sunny, yeah, it was really nice. So I was outside a lot of the day on Sunday and kind of raking up some leaves, and then also with my leaf blower. So then get them, just kind of to the backyard, and then I just turn loose with my Echo leaf blower and push everything all the way to the end of the property. So that's a cathartic process. Like I always had like a leaf blower back, but it was electric, so I had like 100-foot heavy cord and stuff like that. And that was okay. But then I bought a gas leaf blower back, my Echo maybe like 3 years ago. So I love that thing. I didn't do the Ghostbusters backpack version of it, and so I kind of I don't know. I'm kind of mixed about that. I kind of wish I would have, um, because it does after a while. It gets a little bit heavy to be messing with that. But usually, I mean, the only times I'll use the bagger is in spring to suck up all the leaves. I have stones around my house and a couple window wells to get those cleared up, and then in fall just to deal with that. But otherwise, in summer, I'm just using the leaf blower to clean off, the driveway and stuff like that after I mow, just tidy things up. So, so anyway, that was the weekend. So yeah, 50, and uh, so everything that kind of goes with that. My students in the class I was teaching, the university class, brought in a cake, birthday cake for me, which was cool. I had mentioned it on the first day of class that I said the last day of class is actually the last day I'll be 49, and they remembered that and had this all kind of planned, which was cool. Like that was a nice thing. That was a yeah, that was cool. So anyway, yeah, I am. Let me see what I wrote down here. So yeah, the AARP card. I don't know. I'm tossing that around. I there's a place we stay at in summer, and I've got to weigh the discount on it because it might be worth it. I know it's going to be a ton of spam mail and everything like that, but that actually gets recycled into starting my fires. So, um, but yeah, the so my publisher for the velocity of information um, contacted me and identified the date. Friday, April 15th is the day the book will be published. So I'm not sure what's up with that, but because I don't know why you release on a Friday, and looks like Solitude wrote tax day. Yeah, so like on tax day is the day that my book comes out. So get your refund and then go out and buy the book, right? Um, so yes, Friday, April 15th. And so the book was accepted for publication in September. And the publisher contacted me today and said, so then they assign you to different people through so, somebody who goes through and proofs and proofreads, right? And then formats everything. And then there's like the marketing department that looks at artwork and cover options and gives you options to pick from and things that they put together, they mock up. And there's a citations person. And so there's like a lead person. Hey, it's Andrew. Taxation is theft. Yes. Tell me about it. It's crazy. Um, so there's a lead person who's like, "Contact me if you have any questions." So immediately after, like, I got the email, I had, like, 4 questions, and they never got back to me. So I'm like, "Well, that's not really true that you're telling me I can contact you with any questions," because I did have questions. And, they had an so this person had an interesting, and I'm sure it's like this is what's sent out to everybody, although I've published with them now twice, like, I've already gone through this process, but, they said, "You can't change anything in the book other than, like, corrections." Um, so, like, you can't rewrite chapters or things like that, and I'm like, "Yeah, I don't," that wasn't gonna happen anyway, but I do have some things though that I'm looking over because I have a sheet that some things in proofs that I need to tweak. It's usually where it's like changing one word, or something like that, right? So it's, for example, in the Clay Martin chapter, Clay wrote about a crack board where if you hit a certain stress point in the military, they would put your name on this crack board. And I didn't. So when I shared the chapter with Clay, he emailed me back and said it's actually cracked, like ed cracked. So like when I was interviewing him, I just thought crack when I was transcribing it. So like I have to go in and add and change it from cracked to cracked board. Um, But it was, I try to figure out, like, what's going on behind the scenes. Are they getting people who are trying to massively change their manuscripts after they've been accepted for publication? But I've got some things that have to be tweaked in there. It wasn't a problem the last time. I mean, it's a non-negotiable. I mean, some of these things, like, that has to happen. It has to go from crackboard to crackboard to be accurate. Um, so I'm I'm most excited about seeing the artwork. Um, to and then for marketing, it just becomes easier for me to start my aspect of marketing. Market in concert in parallel to the publisher. They AP press, they do all of that stuff, but um, I try to drum up, interest too. So I'm looking forward to that. They're going to have pre-order available before Christmas. So um, it's 255 pages or longer. The price on paperback is 35 and ebook is 32. They set the price. I have nothing to do with the price. There's also a hard copy, which they haven't set a price on. So um, realistically, most people will buy paper or the paperback copy. Um, and just publishing in general has gone up. The cost of materials have, spiked. So that's just the way that it is. So yeah, I was telling my mom about it, and then she's like, "That sounds like a lot of money." I'm like, "Well, I have no control over it." Like, and yeah, I mean, granted, but it's a book I put what, like 3,000 plus hours into, and it's excellent, and it has graphics and all of that type of stuff. Yeah, it's really not that. It is, you know, paying 35, I guess, but then it's a great book, right? I mean, what else are you going to buy for $35? So I've been putting my list together of people I'm sending books to, just as I did with School of Airs. So I think I've got like 40 or 50 people that I will sign a hard copy and I'll send it to them, and that's totally at my expense as a gift to people I interviewed in the book, and then also some other friends, right? And so those will be going out, and then I will donate maybe 10 to libraries in my hometown. I'll donate a signed copy to the library. My hometown is like 1,500 people, but it has like this awesome library that was built like 8 or 10 years ago. Actually, built on the site where the elementary school was when I was attending school. The 100-year-old elementary school got torn down, and a pool was built on one part of this big lot, and then the library was built, like I said, about 8 or 10 years ago on the other side. So it's a really awesome library for a small town. Um, so yeah, I'll do a little book event there, which is fun. Um, and it's as a professional book, right? I mean, it's it's big leagues, right? When you do this. So I'm looking forward to getting that, the book out there. And then in my hometown here, I will, or where I live now, I'll donate to, it's a bigger community. And then the university where I instruct, I'll donate a signed copy. They'll buy copies too, but I just think it's kind of cool, like if you have an author signed copy and then like the date, it was always that thing, like if you wrote sci-fi, and you signed a signed a book or something, you're supposed to put the date and like the location, like where you signed it. So if somebody went back in time, they could find you. So I don't know. I'm not going to put location, but I always put the date. I have a certain way that I sign books. Hey, it's Zippy. Zippy, welcome, buddy. Dude, where's my brains? Yeah, I don't, man. So this wasn't, there wasn't any real heads up on this show. I had hauled enough firewood for the day, and my body was like, "You just got you gotta stop." I'll work on it, finish it tomorrow, and if I have to, like, I'll just push it into Wednesday. There's not any big reason, to kind of push that. So, um, but starting next and tomorrow night, I'll be on DLD after dark, his show, and then starting next week will be the pretty, regular show. I haven't decided Sunday or Monday night yet. And then the Friday mornings will be Face Validity Friday. It just makes sense to do that. I mean, talk about it so much in the book. What are the headlines? What is the media telling you? And then like what is actually happening? So, what am I seeing when I'm going out to stores or being, heading outside, going to the car lot, stuff like that. So yeah. So yeah, that's kind of where things are at. So my publisher, so yeah, I'll have like 50 books, and that initially will be coming into me hard copy, and then I'll be signing and sending those out. And I learned from School of Airs like to um what is it, the post office, like to to stagger that stuff at the post office, because if you show up with 50 books, carrying in a big sack, they don't like that. It's not it's not their thing, like, and the lines get really long. So what I'm going to do is like limited to 10 books or something at a time. But yeah, I had that happen. The last one of the times with School of Airs, I took like maybe like 20 books or something like that down, and they weren't thrilled about it. So I try to like, yeah, go in the morning when most people, aren't there. And um, but anyway, I'll be sending it, I'll be signing, and I started my spreadsheet. So I've got to contact some people and get their address, but I'll wait a little bit closer, just to make sure like no one moved or anything like that. But so to me, it's really, I'm thrilled to do that. So like I do get some books, come to me free as the author, but otherwise, like they don't. I do get a discount on books that I purchase for myself as long as I don't resell them. I'm fine with my contract. I can buy books and give them, sign them, and donate them and give them away and stuff like that. Like that's fine. Um, at my author discount, but I can't resell them. Um, but so anyway, the so April 15th book comes out, and you can check for pre-order. Um, I'll get stuff out there, and it's velocity of information.com, right? Velocity of information.com. Okay. Dun-dun-dun. So yeah, and that eventually will just kind of link directly to when it's available on either the publisher's site or Amazon. I don't know, wherever it is. Um, but yeah, so I'm excited about that. The book is, the date is out there, and it is this thing of when you go through a traditional publisher with a nonfiction book and an index and things like that, um, it is um, it is a long process because September, the book was accepted, and then it will come out in April. And so, you know, what, 8 months, kind of. I mean, depending upon how you look at that. And then it was the same with School of Airs. It was accepted in January, released in August. So pretty much the same 8 months. Um, but yeah, it, so anyway, um, that was good news. So I'm most mostly right now. Well, a couple things. One is I'm waiting, for that first proof to come back, and hopefully it's not crazy because they give you the book, gets sent to you as a PDF, and it'll say like proof number one, and it's formatted, so it's actually like how it would look if you had the book. That it's all cropped, and the pictures are laid out where they would be in the table of contents, um, and so that's cool. But then they also every page every line is numbered throughout the entire document. So like a 255 page book, it's not pages, it goes by lines when they give you the proof. So they might say, line 88, line 104, line, whatever. And they'll say like, and then they'll have things they'll want you to check. So there's this companion document then that you cross reference. I think I'll be pretty, or they'll just tell you like things that they changed. For example, like if you have a number that's under 100 and it's not a quote, it should be written out, not the number. So, if it's 17, it shouldn't be 1 7. It should be, you know, written out 17. So if they catch stuff like that, they'll just note it too, of like no action needed or whatever. But there'll be things like, I'm sure I have 471 endnotes or citations. I'm sure that there will be citation questions they'll have. And not all of them are fully, they're not complete. So when I say that, they are complete as far as like all the information that I could find on, get on them. But um, some of these don't have, for example, like it could be an article, but it doesn't have an author. So they'll like come back on it and say like, this is from whatever, agency or something. And are you sure that there's not an author? So I'll be like, yeah, I'm sure. Like I've gone through this. And or like, do you have the page numbers where this appeared? And I'm like, no. So I mean, some of it, if I had limited access to the book, and that's the thing too of being a university professor. So I have access to a lot of stuff that the general public doesn't. It's behind a paywall. So I can access through my university account. But some of that is kind of limited, and then you don't have access to it like repeatedly or um, but anyway, some of it's just it's like scanned in. It's older documents too. So some of the World War I, World War II stuff, journal stuff. But I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but I'm kind of anticipating that they're going to have questions on some of the completeness of some of the sites, and they're very comprehensive, very complete. It's I don't know. I don't like dealing with that because I know I'm going to be like I don't know. I mean, I spent so much time on those, and so I think I'm in pretty good shape. So Zippy, yeah, when it's on Amazon, I'll have to pick it up. Yeah, so it'd be cool. So the book comes out in hard copy, which I don't know the price on, and paperback is 35, ebook is 32, and then audio comes out next year. So that's by contract, but audio will be less. That will um, be the least expensive version. So, but it won't have any kind of accessories to it. Like there won't be a PDF that will have the figures and things like that. So it'll be just straight up audio. But I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, I'll keep you posted on where the book is, and when I get to the release, I'm going to focus a lot of podcasts on the chapters and talk about the interviews and kind of the themes, stuff like that. So I have so we ordered a vehicle in March. We and it hasn't arrived yet. So it was supposed to be here in October, and it never it didn't show up, right? So, and of course, right, shortages and all of that stuff. And um, but now it's not anywhere. Like I can't track it anymore, and the dealers like n- uh, uncertain if or when it will arrive. So I have to start game planning because I wasn't anticipating keeping our second vehicle through winter. And the deal is, hey, it's Old Humble Distilling Company, and thank you so much for the bottle of whiskey that arrived today. Very well packaged, by the way. Um, and the bottle is really cool. So I have pictures of it up on Twitter. Because I'm not doing this in StreamYard, I can't zip over and bring in a picture of it, but I did put a picture up on Twitter. So definitely appreciate that. So yeah, this is kind of a late night touch base because people. I did say I was going to be doing a regular show on either Sunday or Mondays. Last Monday, Lisa Lenny was on the show, attorney, and that was a great episode. But again, Saturday I was teaching all day, and Sunday was my birthday, and then today was Firewood. Um, so uh, there wasn't going to be the big show for today. So I use OBS, not Streamlabs. Streamlabs is a mess. So everyone has been telling me to go to OBS, Zippy. So anything you can email me with that. And I think too, like it's time for me to invest in a portable green screen. It would be easy for me because I have plenty of space behind me um, to just set it up right and for other things that I do it would probably be better to have a little more of a professional background. I mean this works well for like Zoom in summer of 2020 to have the background that I do, but I think that would be nice. And I don't know all the capability, but I'd like to be able to bring up like documents and images and things like that, rather going through the book or stuff like that. So that'd be nice. So yeah, I'm going to look into that. Old Humble, my understanding is you could use OBS and StreamYard together. I start with OBS, but I really like StreamYard's ease of operation. Like OBS features a lot more. Uh, so okay, I'm up for giving it a try. I actually had two cameras set up tonight because this is the one I'm using is my Logitech C910, which is very old but very reliable for video. Like the audio is really bad on it, but that's why I have the mic. Um, but I have a C920, which also is kind of old now, and that's like a widescreen and a higher def camera, but it seems to kind of doesn't pick up the color nearly as well as this one does. And I don't have this one kind of even set up to I don't have the color feature set up on this one for tonight's stream, but like the uh, I don't know. So I look like I've been out in the sun a little bit and things like that, and the wood shows up a little bit better. It's kind of washed out right now, but it's all right. Um, but yeah, so it's kind of where I'm at is looking for a couple updates, and I'm still running Windows 7 by choice. I have my laptop is 10, but my system down here is 7, and that has done everything I needed to, right? So I know at some point I've probably should or need to update, but this seems to be working fine for now. But so anyway, I had the camera set up on an over here on three monitors. So then, a different angle, and you can kind of see the fireplace in the back. And um, but what I want to do is to have different camera angles for the two shows. So the regular Safety Dot podcast would be this, but then the face validity one, I think I'll take the camera and I'll probably just move it over to the side monitor. It won't have the same, it won't have the fireplace, and there's not much kind of on this side, but um, just to have kind of a little bit of distinction with that. Um, so yeah. So anyway, like, yeah, I don't know this the vehicle we had ordered, and all the stuff designed and four-wheel drive, right? So um that's not going to be here, or at least maybe like some point in midwinter. But so the existing car, which my daughter's using to learn to drive, the second vehicle, um, isn't. I'm going to have to do some things if I'm going to keep that through and going into winter. That was really never the plan. Um, so that changes the game a little bit because now I have to invest a little, a little bit into this vehicle that I'm not going to keep. So, I'm kind of thinking, I don't know. We're not going to keep an extra vehicle for her just to have, because um, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. But I'm thinking I might keep this one through the second vehicle we have, which is 14 years old. But we bought it new and took care of it. But it doesn't have a backup camera, and it's time to replace it. But I might keep it through the winter, put a little bit of money into it, and then um, just when the other vehicle arrives, I would probably just keep that one mostly garaged until spring here, and instead of getting it out and getting the salt on it and stuff like that, save it for a year. Kind of limit the exposure. But yeah, one of the reasons, like, I I ordered the vehicle I did was for Wisconsin winters. To have four-wheel drive, and um, you know, but so I don't know. It's weird though, because I like my dealer, my vehicle dealer, where I bought my other car from. And they've serviced everything, and they've been great. And I know it's not really a dealer thing, but um, I've got to. There's got to be some plan here, right? Like, so what's the deal? Like, um, so when I initially ordered the vehicle, here the thing was, you can what the hell is it? Oh, you can track it from the day it comes down the assembly line. Like, that was the whole thing. Like, um, you'll be emailed pictures of it as it's being produced, which I don't want any of these things anyway, right? Like, I don't care. but like, this was kind of like the thing. Like, you'll be able to monitor where the vehicle's at from manufacturing till to when it shows up at the dealer, and give you a call. Here it is. And none of that was accurate. Like, I'm not saying the dealer was not upfront with me on that, but the whole system got so screwed up with, vehicles really not being complete, and, you know, waiting for parts to get in and stuff like that before they would move them into, and get them over to the dealer. So anyway, I'm like, should have had this new black SUV last month, and it's not here. And I don't want to take delivery of a vehicle in winter. Like, I don't want my first experience with a vehicle to be on our snow and icy roads. Not that I'm not accustomed to that, living in this entire state for 50 years. Um, but I it's difficult to keep a vehicle clean in winter, and then, certain procedures I go through to, sealants and other stuff. And I just, I don't know. It's not sitting well with me, um, that the vehicle isn't here, and no one knows when it's going to be here. No one knows where it is. So, you know, I'm like, so then it's like the contingency plan. So I have the other, we have the two vehicles of mine. Basically, my wife's are wife, and then the one that my daughter's learning on, and so we can just keep that. It's not like we put a lot of miles on the vehicles and for anything that we do for distance traveling, we just take mine. I mean, which is newer. I think I've got 28,000 miles on it. Um, so, I can, it's not this urgent thing, but I want to decide what to do, right? I don't want to hang out with this vehicle. It might not be ever showing up. And then, um, so should I go with a different brand? But then, what's really out there right now? And um, part of the appeal is like we have certain dealerships where I live, right? So this, if anything goes wrong, it's just, it's right in my town. And I don't want to kind of give that up and then go with different brand dealers, which are 40 miles away from where I live. It's because I'm buying new, like I want the warranty and all of that stuff. So, um, shout out to my good friend Aaron Clary with the Clary podcast, who did a special show tonight. A shout out to some people trying to get more subscribers to their channel, and um, was totally on his own. Like, I didn't contact him and say, "Hey, Aaron, like, could you help me get more subs, try to get to 1,000?" But he did, and the channel now is like 508 subs. So I think I'm up like 80 in the last month and trying to get toward that 100. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, so otherwise, Zippy, you're saying you had a bad time with OBS. So yeah, um, I I have time. Like I can put some time into this and figure out what's going on. Old Umble said using virtual camera and OBS is how to use both, but I make whiskey. I don't do video production, so yeah. I mean, I'll learn this to some extent. Like I still use Camtasia to edit my videos, and I don't edit a lot of videos because now I do live stream. But so Camtasia is old. Um, and yeah, so my Camtasia is some old stuff. Um, but yeah, I am, some I'm working with that, and then yeah, my video. I don't know. I've thought about like, do I upgrade to like a different camera? Do I put like a tripod, kind of a different angle down here too, and just like what are some things that I want to do? I have the time, um, and I just don't know how much I want to mess around and kind of learn with things. And I don't know. And also, like some people have contacted me and said, actually, like they like the background and they like the setup. Um, and it is, to me, like it's not bad, um, of having kind of a clean background like that. I think what I need to do is to invest in the paid version of StreamYard, and um, then I can have access to more things that I can pull on screen and stuff like that. But so anyway, so that, so as we go, so kind of shorter show. Hey, you rock, Doc. Thank you, Solitude Surfer. I appreciate that. So yep, I am 50, and that was a good day because again it's warm and sunny. My book will be out on the 15th of April, tax day. It's a Friday too. So now the timing starts to fall into place with press releases, the author events, um, and it works out better for me to have, because initially it was going to be February, and I'm not sure what prompted them to kick it to April. Marketing for but um, in conferences and things like that, and the pre-releases are available and all that stuff. But anyway, it will be available. But for me to travel for author events, it's better, for mid-April. You can't do it before the book releases. Like it's you don't do anything before the book releases. Like for those types of things, you can promo, but like even like radio and stuff like that, you gotta wait till the book releases. But yeah, once that hits, then um, I'll have better weather to travel, and especially, and if people are attending events and things like that. So, looking forward to that. So my plan still is working, through the publisher to do more of a middle US tour for the book. So Salt Lake City, Santa Fe, um, going into um, Texas, and then Florida, Alabama, and then Illinois, Wisconsin. Just that's going to kind of be where it's at, and then maybe some West Coast stuff, and the East Coast is where the publisher's at. They'll take care of things, but and that'll be most of it. So, but yeah, they'll be coming up, so be good. But yeah, so I am. I need to pick up a couple sport coats too. I've been checking out eBay, and it's funny because the moment like you put it on your watch list, then an hour later you get in your inbox, hey, like they've the sellers issued a special deal, like 20% off. And the thing is, like sport coats on eBay, um, they've also been not infected, I guess, but affected by inflation, which is crazy because people really aren't wearing blazers and sport coats because it's work casual. And that's, I mean, like, for example, the dry cleaning place in town went out of business. So, like, I've got to pack all my stuff up. And I still wear sport coats well, I do a podcast, but I mean, when I teach my university classes, I always wear a sport coat, dress shirt, and dress slacks and dress shoes. I mean, I think it's just a professional image. It's not required to do that, but I always do. Um, but yeah, I've Febrezed my sport coats as far as I can take them. and, and now I've got to get them into the dry cleaning. I've got to add a couple more into the rotation too, like a navy blue. I don't have a navy blue. And so anyway, I found them, and I wear Oscar De La Renta 44 regular. So as long as I order that and it hasn't been, or not order, if I buy it and it hasn't been altered, I'm in pretty good shape. So again, about if you order three, or not, if you buy three, so let's say you invest $100 between all three of them, probably two will be good, and you'll have one which won't fit. And I'm okay with that. Then it just goes to Goodwill or something like that. Because I'm thinking if I bought these new, I'd be spending a few $100s on each one of them. So yeah, I'm not going to overpay, but it's weird. The sport market or the sport coat market has gone up. Atham, what's happening? Atham, I'm looking for a sport coat, and Aaron Clary did a little shout out show for a couple podcasts, including mine and Bacon's. So like we've got some subscribers. So it's cool. I'm 50 Atham, so 50 years old in one day. So yeah, one of my friends is like, God, I can't believe you're 50. I'm like, what? So you got a sport coat? Cool. Yeah. Did you buy it new or did you buy it used? Because I pick all mine up used. So hey, Moose Gal's Corner. Well, hello, Moose Gal. Welcome from Illinois. So thank you very much for stopping in. Yeah, I'm 50 years old in one day. So that's very cool. So people think it's a suit, says Anthem. I got it new. Okay. So I found too that there are you can buy like a tuxedo top, right, for like $10 on eBay. So I'm tempted to do that and just throw it in every once in a while for a show, because why not? So Moose Gal's Corner is saying, so what's up? So this is, yeah. So I turned 50 yesterday, 50 years old, and it's beautiful weather here, like 70, sunny. And I'm a lifelong Wisconsin resident, and I grew up in northern Wisconsin, so always on my birthday, snow, cold, just sucked. Really, as a kid, like I was envious of my friends who had summer birthdays. I was like, God, because your birthday's in summer, you can go out places, do baseball, stuff like that. And my birthday, it was just snowy and cold, and so you'd have to be inside. And even though like your friends would come over and you'd try to play basketball, like that wouldn't work because the basketball wouldn't bounce or be slippery outside, or this whole thing of saying like, hey, like you can go sledding and stuff. Yeah, I would gladly trade a summer birthday. Um, but anyway, like, yeah, it was shorts and t-shirt, and then I was out with my leaf blower, and it was nice. So, and today was the same way. Now it'll start to cool down, but we've already whittled off a week plus of November with summer like weather, and it's been sunny too. That's the other thing. We kind of hit these overcast spurts in winter in Wisconsin where it's like 60 days and no sun. Um, so like this is good. Now it also creates a secondary problem. Um, hey, Ethel, you have a winter birthday, but you're in an area that, right? Isn't the weather a little better by you? Happy beer day, yeah. Um, I I thought about like getting a beer and stuff like that, but I'm like, I'm gonna be. I didn't, but anyway. So yeah, so all day I've been hauling firewood. So I have the most firewood I've ever accumulated in my life, which is true because I heat my house with wood, and I got things got out of whack last year and a tree fell on my house. So then the tree had to pay the ultimate price and become firewood. But then that screwed up my whole firewood system and rotation. And um, so all of my firewood, it I get my firewood delivered, and then I take it and haul it downstairs. So it's a bag at a time. Like it's, well, a canvas bag I have, right? So and it takes hours. I mean, it takes days. It takes like 3 days to get the wood downstairs, and then I have to stack it, right? And then so I mean, I have it on the webs or I have it on my Twitter account, safety PhD at safety PhD, some pictures, and so I mean, it is pretty crazy with my firewood. So tomorrow I'll finish it up, but I'm sore. Like, oh god, like it's just a lot. And now because I have so much firewood and it's in my furnace room, everything at my house remembers utility. Like that's the furnace room, that's the laundry room, that's the fireplace room, that's a kitchen, it's a bathroom. Like there's no living room, family room. It's nothing um, but so yeah, and it warmed up earlier in spring, so I didn't burn out my firewood like I should have. Like I should have just kept going and burned. Um, but I don't know, I didn't. And so anyway, like yeah, I have just a massive amount of firewood. Like, I probably have, as far as like face cords of firewood, like 14 face cords of firewood, which is an incredible amount. Usually I'm probably at like between 8 and 10, and I have a high efficiency um, wood insert um, that I had put in 2006 to heat the house. So that thing is that will burn like wood down to fine ash. Like I can burn um, for 2 weeks before I have to empty the ash out of that because it's just the efficiencies is just amazing with that thing. Um, but yeah, so uh, I've got this. So I started to do stacking now in the center of the room because I have wood from last year that was left that I got to burn out. Like you never want wood to stay too long because if there's insects that are in the wood beyond a season, they could come out and that could be a bad deal. Um, so yeah, it's just like so free stacking this thing kind of sucks because you have to crisscross all of the wood because you just don't want the stack to fall down. And um, you know, it's one of those things where, like I said, it's kind of like a modern marvels project. And I've done this long enough. It's just you got to always just pay attention, check the stack that it's not wobbly because it'll be 10 foot long, 7 foot high, and then about 6 foot wide. So imagine that. So if that goes to hell on you and hits you, like that's bad news. Um, and it would do damage down there too. So, but I think I'm in pretty good shape. Um, but yeah, I don't have a better setup for it. I wish my garage was bigger. I would just That's where I would store. And I will have the option next year of having the concrete ripped out on the side of the garage, the pad outside, which is all junk, and then having a new larger pad poured over there. And I could put half my wood supply out there. I have still siding on my house, so I'd have to make sure I like cleared that by a couple feet because I don't, that'd be really bad to have anything damage that. Um, but because that's like, yeah, that put on 10 years ago, like hurricane grade steel siding. Um, so Moose Gal said, "You're a cheesehead." Yeah, I am. I am a cheesehead. Sad with the Packers. Special teams are awful. Happy birthday. Thank you, Moose Gal. Atham put, but I had points and discount and stuff. I ended up paying like $70. It's a good deal on a blazer or sport coat. So, the thing with a sport coat today is you can get away with almost anything because even if it's not in style and you wear it, people think you're just being stylish, right? And because people just, and they're not formal, people aren't as formal. So when you do wear a sport coat or anything, it just kind of stands out in general. And I think it's just a nice professional touch. So I worry about that less than when I was a school administrator and I had sport coats. I don't know if you remember Herb Tarlick from WKRP in Cincinnati, the TV show. I did have some like big window pane, like Herb Tarlick type sport coats, and like that again every sport coat I ever bought off of eBay, and so you know they were fun, but people were I didn't know if they were like, "Is that for real? Like, are you or is this, like, just cutting edge kind of a fashion, statement you're making? Is that, like, really cool, or is it, like, that you totally have no idea what you're doing?" And even, like, with gray with gray, dress pants and matching it up, like, things don't quite match exactly, and even, like a pattern shirt with a patterned sport coat, but again, no, I just don't think anybody notices anymore. I think if they do, they just look at it as, "That's cool." Maybe that's what I wanna believe, but, um, so anyway, I I have my eBay cart or watch list kind of ready. I just need to actually press the buy button, go in there and pick up probably the 3 sport coats that I have my eye on, and yeah, so usually, like, whenever I do a show for the Safety Doc podcast, it shows up in the playlist, I'll have a sport coat on, um, so always that's the professional stuff, and then I've been taking it a little more casual with the other things, so this is, yeah, it's a REI. I've had this quite a while. Like, I don't know, zip sweatshirt or whatever it is, fleecy, I think. Um, so men still wear a sport coat, Moose Gal wrote. Yes. Yes. I do. I I'm kind of were in the camp of like Quintus Curtius on um, YouTube, and then his philosophy of wear, look, dress up. It doesn't cost a lot, and people res- respond to you differently when you're formal, especially if it's a job or you know s- um, I always remember going to those looking back at the baseball game, pitchers in the 30s and 40s, and you'd see everybody like all dressed up in sport coats and formal wear, and um, double-breasted pea coat and nice shoes. I have a double-breasted pea coat, actual Navy issued pea coat that's 20 years old, and I have it dry cleaned twice a year, and it is remarkable. And people compliment me, compliment the coat. Many times I'll be out and people just be like, "Whoa, like that's awesome! Like, where'd you get this?" It's the actual Navy issued pea coat. Um, so I can't tell. I've had it long, long time. But the thing like has no wear, and it also was in I was wearing it when was in the car accident, which destroyed my Buick. So and and it was covered in glass, right? And I'm all banged up, but after that, you shook it off. It's fine. There wasn't like even a button missing. um, so yeah, it is a cool look. Yeah, nice shoes. So yeah, I always have kind of an array of dress shoes that I go with. So it's a cool look. And by the way, for shoes, I I bought some Hoka Bondi sevens. I never had Hoka before as a brand, and I love them. They're extremely like soft and cushy. So it took a little bit to get used to it because I had been buying um, Brooks Beast, which is more of a stability shoe, and I bought like a new pair of Brooks because my toes wore through like the previous pairs, and then I just didn't like it as much, like at all. This wasn't my thing. And then I kind of broke it in now, and it's like I'll just you know I'll wear it on days when the weather it's rained or something like that. But these Hokas are just awesome. So those are going to be my vacation shoes, and so yeah, kind of interesting, right? Like growing up, everything was always Nike, like always Nike. I had a pair of the original Air Jordans, and from 1984 or something, and I wore them for basketball, and then after that, I put them back in the box, and I just kept them for years, and then I put them on eBay maybe like 10 years ago or more, and somebody like bid them up to over $100, and again, and they were kind of cracked and stuff like that just from age and 100 plus shipping, and so that's pretty cool. So yeah, yeah. Um, so again, yeah, right here, my birthday turned 50. So, and if you're not following me on Twitter, please follow me on Twitter. Please go at safetyphd.com, sub to this channel, tell your friends. And I'm it's very close, like setting up the agenda in the regular, either Monday or Sunday show, and then the Friday morning face validity show, which will kind of be a little bit similar to DT's format, when he was going through some of the headlines. Um, Kind of similar. So, but yeah, I am pretty much done here for the night. Just wanted to do this, check in, and let everybody, yeah, know, hey, I had a good birthday, so that was good. So one person watching. So this live stream is thankfully we have a 7 thumbs up in this, but there's like nobody watching this live stream except Atham. Atham is watching the live stream, and right here the Atham, this is for you. So give you this thumbs up, and I'm also going to give you this like a fist bump right there for watching this live stream. So we can actually check if this works here. Um, I'm supposed to be able. What in the world? Oh, so look at this. Dun 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 dun. It's pretty cool. Um, so yeah, some effects going on. Look at this. Whoa. Now look at this. Whoa. Whoa. Hey guys. How's it going? All right. Whoa. All right. Whoa. And then yeah, if gravity went bad, whoa. So some of these I think if I started them, I don't think I could shut them down. So this actually should change the color. This should change the background and give me more hue. So I don't know if it will or won't. Um, I haven't done this kind of midstream, so I don't know if it had any effect. And it's weird because the monitor I'm looking at, so I have the show as it's coming through YouTube on another channel, and then as I'm looking at the monitor in front of me, I'm like, visually, they're significantly different. Like, the wood grain is much richer in the monitor in front of me, and what's coming through on the YouTube is very kind of washed out, so I don't know. And this place was country. I don't, yeah. And now look at this. What in the hell's going on here? Like, this is wild. So, yeah, now we've got this going on, which I actually kind of like. I could kind of get into this. I think if I started a show like this and stayed with it, it would be okay. Um, and then, yeah, some of these. Well, that's way too light. That's way too light. That's creepy. That's, I don't know. There's a. I mean, a lot of the stuff I didn't even mess with. It sucks. It's had to be this one. Yeah, that one sucks. Had to be this one. Um, so yeah, I have to get out. And then, um, there's the winter mode. God, I'll be sad when it snows. I just hate I just hate snow. And the only redeeming factor of snow for me is I get to use my snowblower if it's like 3 inches of snow or more. Because if it's just a dusting, the snowblower doesn't do anything with that. Um, but if you get like 3 or more inches of snow, and so the snowblower is just a toy, right? Like, I mean, well, it's an actual. I mean, it's a. How should I say? It's fun. Like, it's fun to throw snow 40 feet across my yard, and um, I love my snowblower. So when there's a big snow that comes in, that's pretty exciting because, like, it's not really backbreaking at all. And I just and yeah, so that is cool. I love using my snowblower. But I before I had one, it sucked. I hated shoveling. Like, that was horrible. Um, but yeah, so that's a redeeming part of winter, is getting to use that. So here's the popcorn coming up. So yeah, this popcorn hour. Dun, dun, dun. So it's pretty, like, people be like, "How'd you do that?" I'd be like, "It's just part of the program." I'm running UCam 9, which is actually a pretty good program. I had UCam 8, UCam 9. This one's been out there for a while. I think I could step it up. There's like a new version, but this is all part of it. So yeah, it's kind of fun to do this. And then so yeah, star. I think there's one here where it makes it look like you have microphones like in front of you, and here's steam coming out of your ears. So it should be pretty cool. I don't know where the hell the microphone one is. Um, like I said, there's some stuff I could. There's like an avatar. Gosh darn, there's an avatar feature in here. Um, oh, so this is usually, like, I'll give it a try. This is usually where to lock the system up, so if it does, the show's over. But yeah, so, like, let's just try it. Like, I'm Santa. Hi, Atham. Merry Christmas. So hey, that did work. All right, and then this one is for Zippy. Hello, Zippy. I am from outer space. I want to talk to you about intellectual property because I've been monitoring all of Earth's transmissions, and I'm very concerned. And I am going to file with the Case Act. Thank you. Whoa. All right. So, Zippy, we just had our stream interrupted here by an alien that seems to be interested in filing a lawsuit against you because has somehow been tracking your communications in space. So that's disheartening. And then, of course, uh, I've used this one before. Well, hello there. This is if I actually, that's looking really bad. Hello there. So yeah, I'm going on a show, and I don't know. I don't want anyone to know who I am. So this is the dude I am. So, um, and then This is where I think like OBS would. So actually the camera's moving with my mouth, it's supposed to, and I can get this pretty closely calibrated, I guess, but um, you know, it's pretty ridiculous. Here's one. Hey there, look at hi everybody. It's clown day. It can be a dog. Hey, everybody, I'm a dog. It can be this guy. Hey everybody. See now system's like what and what's going on? And oh yeah, so there's see this is the part where it's kind of like because this isn't new, this program is old. So you've kind of got to be you've got to the extent of what it can do. But here it is with Teddy Bear Doctor. Well, hello, I'm Teddy Bear Doctor. How is everybody? I am the teddy bear. Um, and that blinking that happens because it starts to I have a lot of RAM on this system, but I think just the program is old, right? And it's running through an older camera and it's Windows. It's all the combination of everything. Um, but yeah, this is. I mean, it's not bad. And then of course, I can pull stuff onto the screen here. Like dun, 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 wow. The party stuff going on. Hey, here's what I'm thinking. It's kind of that. Um, So yeah, whoa, hey, it's watch out, thoughts, lightning, and then hey, clip there. Um, start of a show, right? Got this. So whoa, there it is again. So all of it's whoa. Okay, all right. Somebody's got to stop that. Kenobi. Uh, so I'm a galactic emperor. Behold the power of the Grump side. So the dog is the best one. Yeah. If I was to yeah, I don't know. I should spend a little more time trying to figure this out. But so, yeah. Anyway, kind of cool. I have to, you could actually, there's features on UCam to do your virtual makeup like before you go live, which I haven't messed with, but it is an option on here. So I think there's one default where it just is like wrinkle smoother, and sometimes I've clicked that one. And yeah, but so I don't know if it'll do it here, but let's see. Yeah, it does. See, like it puts the rock star eyes for me, and then uh this will be cool. I don't know, same. Oh God, now I'm into some um over my head here. So here's another one. It just does like subtle, I guess, makeup changes, right? So yeah, I don't. Where's the rock? Yeah, so let's just go back to original. I don't think you're supposed to really be wearing like a visor baseball hat for this. Um, so let's go with the overall thing here. Yeah, please, any of the shows, yeah, if you can sub to the channel or let people know, that helps. Um, that's I'm up over 500 subscribers now, and you know I am really hoping to get close to 1,000 by the time the book releases. And that's again there's much momentum, and of course that has to come in with regular recording stuff like that too, but pretty excited. um so that's coming in, and then my other part is I need enough hours watched of video. That's why I'm doing more live streams, to be able to um, monetize the channel. Now, if the channel was monetized and I was able to get some money coming in off of this channel, I would use that to buy books, my book, and then probably try to get those out into like more libraries or more influencers, right? Um, I would, I'd use it pretty much for that, or author events, or drawings, right? Um, and one of the things that I've kind of looked at on my own promo side is, maybe going somewhere, working it out with. I don't know. I don't have it figured out yet, but someplace, and where I'd be brought in as a guest to talk about the book, but then also pay buy like a couple of gift cards to a place. So I don't know what place. It's not Barnes, not like a traditional book place, but maybe like what the hell would it be? And there'd have to be value. Like I'm trying to think of some novel type things. It's almost like an Elks Club or a JC's or something like that. Where I could come in and talk for 45 minutes. About the book, have like one or two books that I could give away while I was there, and then um, maybe like a gift card or two. Like I just don't want to give away an Amazon gift card, right? You want to support the place. So what I'm thinking is in town, um, it's so Zippy's saying it's not hard to get monetized. It's keeping it monetized is tricky because of the YouTube IP bots. So I think like I'll be okay because most of what I produce, as long as I stay away from the COVID stuff, because like the show I did with Lisa on Monday, of course, right below immediately, the blue stuff comes up. Hey, like go here for like COVID resources and stuff, that YouTube puts on there. I think I have to steer clear of that. And because I'm not a Second Amendment channel, that's and the prepper survival, those in my observations and friends that have those channels, those are hard to keep monetized because of strikes or people report things, or it just seems to bring a lot of attention. So I need to be careful, and my shows are clean, with language and stuff like that. So um but right, I mean, anything can happen. Anybody can say the show, um all the reasons why you can report a show, right? Like they can do that. So spicy content is randomly dinged. Even if you talk about COVID correctly, it can be annoying. IP wise, you kind of have to try pretty hard. So yeah. Well, actually, so I'm excited. Like I'm less than 500 away. I'm halfway to my goal of 1,000, and then I don't know how the whole monetizing thing works, but I've got enough shows out there, and I'm getting more views, and like this is I'm not going to be a professional YouTuber or influencer, like, and I actually have friends, that's what they do. Like that's their entire income. And um one was an over the road truck driver who became a YouTuber and just did that full time and makes his living off of it. And another one was a teacher and started an outdoors channel 3-4 years ago. Now that he completely left teaching and does his channel, and he also has like a what Patreon or whatever, people to support him. Um, so that's not that won't be my thing because but let's say that I don't know how this works or how much this channel could potentially generate, but even if it's like, hey, it generates, $100 a month, hypothetically, between like if there were any super chats or the commercials on YouTube. Again, I don't know, but let's say it's $100 a month. Um, I would use that to promote the book, and I think so. Like in town here, we have this a mercantile, so where they sell stuff, like people around, they make honey or they harvest honey and soaps and you know hand stitched towels and artwork and stuff like that. And I think it would be cool to do an author event. Now, like that facility you wouldn't be able to do it at because it's a store. like um but they I think it would be cool to do something like in partnership with them. And then, for example, I'll say I'll purchase 2 gift cards or gift certificates to here, like for $25 each. And then I will, also donate, like I'll bring 2 hard copy books with me, and we'll do the event somewhere. But so like your part in this is, promo, like, have a sign up here at the store, or however it might work to do a little promo. You've got window space, which is great. And then wherever the event is held, um, it's not going to be a real big event. And I mean, in addition to library, I'd have to kind of figure that out. But wherever the event is held, then yeah, I mean, people would enter as they're there, and I would pick for the 2 books, and I could sign them there, and then 2 people would get the gift certificates, which would be back to like the mercantiler. And for me to do that for promo stuff, I'm fine with that, like, because um, that's out of my own budget. Actually, that's not through the publisher; they have their stuff, but I have some money allocated into the promo of the book. So, and you might be like, well, that seems kind of weird. Um, I don't, maybe you're not. And you're like, not at all. It's not weird at all. But the reason, so writing the book is professionally just something I wanted to do right, and it's a high scholarly work. I think publisher thinks too. We're going to be in the running for some awards with it. Um, but the book um, provides me with ancillary benefits of my university rank as PhD professor. It's a substantial scholarly work. It opens a door to additional classes being offered to me. Like it expands my name recognition with the university and students. Because, right, I mean, if somebody Googles your name, I mean, this is part of how this works, right? Too, like your credibility as a prof, and um, credibility as a consultant, and as a keynote. So if you're keynoting, like last year, I keynoted a conference in Texas, and a huge part of that was because I wrote School of Airs, like, right, and that plus being on PBS. But having a book published by a traditional publisher, and a nonfiction scholarly book, and now like having 2, that's huge. Like, especially if you're keynoting, people, that's, you get asked that right away, like, what have you published? And if you have someone's paid you to publish, and there's like a high barrier to get in, like, all the stuff I had to do to pitch the book, and and they that's a threshold, like, they know that, like, that's appealing, that they can say the author of whatever. And this isn't to say I'm not trying to start something with like the value of self-publishing versus publishing house, because I haven't ever attempted to self-publish, but I'm saying, like, at the university, um, to a self-published work wouldn't count towards scholarly work at the university. At least where I'm at, it wouldn't. So it has to be a tier 1 or 2 tier 2 press. I have a tier 2 press as my publisher. Um, but so all of the time that goes into the book and the book promotion, the publisher obviously is publishing it for money, right? To make a profit, just like they did with School of Airs. And then I get some royalties out of that. But, most of the profit obviously goes to the publisher. Um, but what I get out of the book is additional university courses being offered to me. And as a PhD prof, getting top tier courses offered is really pretty prestigious, right? Like, there are very few people that kind of get, like, I'm teaching one class now that I think I'm the only one at the university probably, like, qualified and with kind of the credentials to teach this class. And some of that came out of some of the expertise that's demonstrated through the books. But then students, again, they register and they know, that you have stuff that's been published. And both of the books are course books for different universities. So they build classes out around my books. So, um, but anyway, so I'm trying to get to like the point of saying, if I have my own out of pocket budget to promote my book through some of these in person author events, or if I'm buying books and sending the hard copies and sending them out to people, and then hopefully like they'll post them on social media or talk about them, and like I think Zippy and Atham, I mean, you guys will get books. I'll definitely. I think I've already got both of you in my um, Excel document where I'm listing where I'm going to send books out to. I mean, not everybody gets a book, right? Um, but there are certain people that I want to send a hard copy that is inscribed, and then hopefully like you'd consider leaving a review. It's not contingent, right, that you leave a review, but that you'd consider it, or that you mention it, or that you take a picture of the book having received it and put it on social media. So just to give a little more saturation. But that's part of it, though. But I mean, people I'm sending the books to, I genuinely want them to have the books. They're friends. They've contributed to you know um, the work that I've done. For example, like Atham. Uh, I've used the account so many times when I either teach university courses and things like that, or situational awareness, of saying how before, as you're getting ready for caving and stuff, observational skills of just like watching people and trying to anticipate their next activity. Just if you're out and about, the group of people, and you're watching, okay, what are they going to do next? And and Zippy, I mean, big time with IP, intellectual property stuff. I mean, helped me out, and just so I could start to have that language, that I could talk to people about, what is intellectual property. As I shared with you, it's a hard conversation to have in the legal classes in school administration, because people just don't view it as an issue, but they don't realize how sophisticated, um, these tracking systems are, and then just how, um, kids, teachers making videos and web pages, and using copyrighted content within those and posting them up through the school, and kind of where the barrier, where it ends, where it's for school use versus other things. And so I learned a lot, and I've been able to bring that in. Actually, I had it as part of a case study, not like the main theme of a case study, but I had it in there. And yeah, people are in class. I'm like, so here's some, and then they're like, no, in a school, like you can use pictures and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, but let's think about this. Like, how many times for concerts, if a kid is going to perform a song or whatever, if they buy the sheet music for it, right? They buy the sheet music for a lot of the stuff, right? It might be $1.20 or whatever, and then they can do for release or whatever it is. Um, but I said, it's the same thing, right? Like there's similarities there. So makes them think. So it's just good. Like I'm starting to find ways to bring that into my instruction a little bit more. Atham, I inspired part of a college course. Oops. Yeah. Um, yeah, no, Atham, um, I was going to write about that in the velocity of information, and I ran out of space. Like, um, there was a few things that I had to leave out. Um, you know, I had, for example, Nick Schulaner, um, and Juan Cabrera. So Juan was telling me about when COVID hit in San Francisco, in March of 2020, before any stimulus bill or unemployment boost or whatever. People were dumping their cars for just a couple $100. And he's like, as a mechanic, he was scooping all these cars up and fixing them and then turning them for profits and or just hanging on to them. But he said, you look at it and it had tires that were a month old, and they'd be like, "Give me $200 cash," and for the whole vehicle. So that was an interesting. That was interesting. I mean, it was great. Like it would be a great standalone article or something just to talk to about how the velocity, how people when they panic, how they reach try to get cash. Nick Schulaner, great interview too, at the university, talking about how that shut down, and then how he noticed on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, people were dumping laptops, routers, gaming systems in March of 2020. And not only that, like they would drive 100 miles to bring it to you, and because gas was like 80 cents a gallon. And again, people have, there was again that period of 2, 3 weeks where people had no idea if there would be any government stimulus coming out, any how unemployment would work. So like during that panicked phase, they were flooding everything they could to just get cash, right? And so if you were in tune with that, like Nick bought some stuff for pennies on the dollar. Um, but I kept it in the graphics, and I think I kind of kept it in the graphics description, but I had to take it out of the, um, I had it, there, that was cut. Like I said, I ran out of space. It was amazing because, um, the book I was approved. So in negotiating out the contract, right, which was a longer process because there were things I wanted in the book. I wanted to have a greater allowance for graphics, to have more images, and I wanted to be able to do a longer book. So initially, they offered me similar contract to School of Airs. I'm like, well, okay, but that was successful, and it continues to sell, and I want more. I'm proven right, and since School of Airs, like I was on PBS again, and I've uh, so I'm not an unknown, right? Like what I've done for a book and other things, and so anyway, um, I said I need 62,000 words. School of Airs is 57 or 58. I have to go back. It's because everything is words. Like it's not pages, because you have no idea how pages will look when you're writing a book, because like if you're where it's where your chapters end and your pictures, and so to say you're going to write a 200-page book, like that could be anywhere from 55,000 to 60,000 words, depending upon how it's formatted. Um, so you go by words, and then and then the publisher kind of knows like what the range will be. And I have a big um, a- index in this book, like in of course the 471 endnotes, but I didn't do a forward. I eliminated that because one is I didn't think I needed anybody to kind of promote. There were a couple of people like Mike Rowe. I was in contact with his folks extensively, and then it just came. They just said he doesn't have time to do this, so it was okay. And there were a few others of kind of that tier, and then after that, I was like, well, I don't know if I really need a forward, for the book. Danny Woodburn was an awesome forward for School of Airs. Uh, just a terrific person, an advocate. What he wrote was completely aligned and engaging. Um, and also my first book, but now like I'm like I don't need I don't need that for this book. Um, so that saved me some space. And but anyway, so 62,000 words, and then the book, when I finished it, it was like maybe like 74,000 words. So I went back to the publisher and I said, I need, what can we do here? So they're like maybe like 65,000 words. So I'm like, okay, still 9,000 words to cut. So that's where like the Nick Schulander, Juan Cabrera, and I kind of had that covered in other places, um, in the velocity of information, how markets kind of changed really rapidly. And yeah. And so it's, as with School of Airs, the stuff that got cut out was really good. So I can use it in other places, like, keynote presentations or articles or stuff like that. Um, but the book actually came out to be 67,000 words. So it was above what they allotted me. It was 2,000 above. And when I submitted it, I thought they were going to come back and say, you've got to trim. And of course, they didn't. They loved it. Like, right. They just said, Don't change a thing." Um, so the whole 255-page thing, I wouldn't be surprised if it actually comes out more than that, probably in the 260s. Because I've been going through and I know I've got more images. There's 20 images in the book, and depending upon how thorough the index is, because the index is the very last step when everything is in the book and all the proofs done and everything is formatted. That's when they go in an index, because you index too early and something gets changed, then it messes everything up, because the index is cross-referenced to the layout of the book. So, um, so yeah, that's in. So anyway, the index, I mean, they do all of that, but I prefer a pretty aggressive index. Like, there'll be things like, if they're not in the index, I'll revisit and say, like, this needs to be in the index. They also change. They approached me and said, we want to change up the table of contents. And this was interesting. Hey, so we have Zippy and Atham hanging in here for our two. We bumped up to three there for a second. Um, so so yeah, it is. So anyway, the book had like 55 chapters and stuff like that, and then I had these 7 overarching themes, and they said, well, like 55 chapters is kind of overwhelming. Um, so we'll do the 7 overarching themes as chapters. So it'll be 7 chapters, and then we'll keep all of this other stuff. Like, nothing will change. Like, it'll just be there, but it'll just be like a subchapter. And so you'll have a dense table of contents, which I want it. Like, it's very descriptive. Like, Robert Travis, the crab boater. Like, I've got one part where it says, all of my bosses are dead. I mean, like, I would read that chapter, right? Like, I'd be like, what the hell? And he talks about his 4 bosses, were killed on the boat. Um, so, like, I want people to be able to go to the table of contents, because that shows up in everywhere the book will be listed, right? So if you, yeah, like on Amazon, right, you're going to go through the table of contents, and it's descriptive enough where you get a pretty good feel for what the book is going to be about. And I wanted that, because my thought is, like, when I look for books and I see, like, just, the chapter headings, and I don't see subheadings, I'm it's more hit and miss, like, if I'm going to venture into that. Now, if I see like a very robust, um, I guess, table of contents, with the subchapters and kind of like real catchy headings, like, I'm more likely to buy the book. And I've got some really cool 4 endorsements for the back cover, which are great too. But the index is a book in of itself. Laugh out loud, Zippy. Yeah, it is. So it's a whole process. Like, I have an entire department, and there's when you in the contract. I mean, it's extensive. The index part. I mean, and you have the choice as an author to not have the indexing done. Um, of course, the if you don't have the index done, um, it changes your royalty structure a little bit, because the indexing is time intensive, and it also takes up more pages. So it's a longer book, and there's more investment put into it by the publishing company. Um, so those are, but obviously, like, if you're doing any professional work, which this is, to not have an index in it, um, is instantly recognized. Like, um, it would be a fatal mistake. And anyway, finite voltage, crowd and behavior, like the way that the themes are set up in the book and how they appear in different places in the book to kind of frame them in different perspectives. I put so much time into that that the index will work really well. Like the index is if you have any questions about what the themes mean, the index will show you how they're represented throughout different parts of the book. It's going to work really well, as long as, yeah, the indexing folks don't go nutso on it. But I get to see all of that and approve it, and all that stuff, anyways. But um, so so yeah, it's some. I would love to. Um, almost do like a class, but not necessarily like where people have to sign up and pay for it and stuff like that. But like, um, we have a local tech college here, and with the schools and stuff like that. But I would like to do like a two night class, and where it would be talking about just my experiences, right? As how if you're interested in getting something published, right? How you interface with publishers, and how you write a book proposal, and how you, I mean, the book proposal was like 20 pages long, probably took me a week to write. And part of it includes, you have to look at other works, like what's similar to you. Like I'm like Malcolm Gladwell, Nassim Taleb, The Black Swan, John Ronson, somewhat. It's kind of, so how are you different than them, and how, and who are you going to market this to? How can we market this? And actually, one thing I shared with my publisher is I said, like a good 25% of my followers on social media, they're preppers and survivalists. I said it's a very strongly represented. And like when I get contacted by people who have seen me on PBS, I'm like, there are people from the survival community and prepper. And I said, because I think a lot of what I say resonates. And I said also, I said I think that population has become very uh, more sophisticated, right? Of i- so I mean, before the year 2000, people thought of preppers and survivalists as they're just going to stock up food, and if the computers turn over and the system goes all wonky and stuff like that, they'll be the ones that'll make it. Hey, Gormonger, welcome. Thanks, buddy. Thanks. Probably, I think you hit the thumbs up too. Appreciate it. I'm over 500 subscribers, so thanks. And if you follow me on Twitter, my Twitter numbers really haven't changed at all. Over here it's at Safety PhD. So I only post on Twitter. I have a LinkedIn account too. So if you find me on LinkedIn, I will gladly connect. But I don't really do much original stuff. Someone sold me on that idea like 2 years ago. They're like, "Oh, like LinkedIn, like there'll be so many great things, opportunities to open up for you," and that never happened. But professionally, right? And I keep it pretty thin over there. Like I don't list like every job I ever had, and I don't list like every degree or class I've taken or stuff. But I do. It is a professional profile, that somebody can find if they are, looking to learn a little bit more about me or contact information or some of the articles maybe that I've done on Google Scholar. Like I think I'm up to like 20 articles in the book, and now some of my stuff is getting cited on Google Scholar, which is nice. But um, so so yeah, I mean that's fun. Um, with Google Scholar to have some of your stuff show up. So not a lot of it. Like it's otherwise, like I'll find someone like, hey, like your article's been cited 900 times and mine's been cited four, but but four is better than zero. Like I'd never had any of that stuff before. Um, so yeah, so Gormonger, yes, I am 50 years old. So Yikes. So yeah, just um, it's weird. It's weird to say that. I mean, it's I remember watching like the NFL or Major League Baseball or something like that, and then when I got to be like 44 or something, I'd be like, whoa, like I'm older than anybody playing professional baseball. Or like, in the NFL, like at that time, like I think it was Rich Gannon. I remember he was like what 42 or 43 with the Raiders, and we were kind of like the same age. And then so it's kind of weird because I'm like, God, like these players are like half my age or younger than that. So it's kind of weird to think about that. Actually, I'm in pretty good shape though, because I think if I were to play like rec league basketball or like a 50-year-old and up softball league, I would probably be pretty gosh darn good in that. Um, so yeah, I wanna talk. I'd like to offer kind of like a roundtable thing, right? Like people could come in and I could talk about my experiences with with working with a publisher, and then how that goes with deadlines, and how I make my I wrote out chapter outlines, and how I would keep things organized, and I learned about citations and like things that I would recommend people do to make it a lot easier on themselves. Like go in and with your citations, like put them in the text and then remove them later. Always but put them like right there, like as in running in the document. It, kind of little tricks, graphics, how that works, and how find out from your publisher like what the print size of your book will be, like 6 by 9 trim. So if you do work with a graphics person, like you can say it's a 6 by 9 trim, so they're not giving you something that then you is formatted for 8 by 10, and it looks all weird when it gets put in a book and stuff like that. Um, and yeah, how everything is done with word count. Like it's not pages. Pages mean nothing when you're writing. It's all words. Um, and yeah, index, what to look for in index, and how, and then I think the other part is to what do you want to get out of it, right? Because like if I was writing a book, the books for a living, I'd be in trouble. I'd be in big trouble. Um, like School of Airs, I get a royalty check every year, but I mean, it's nothing that's, uh, you know, you could live off of, right? You couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. Um, but what what do you want to accomplish? Are you trying to, um, for me, like university stuff, have that open to me. Do keynote presentations, do courses that you could build out off of your work, right? Are you trying to become an expert, like an expert witness, legal expert witness? I mean, School of Airs played a role in that for me. Um, so, like, what do you want the book to do, or is it kind of like is it something you want legacy? As a professional, is it like a personal quest? Um, and so I guess like what are you trying to get out of it? Um, but for me, yeah, the fact that the second book comes out, and then School of Airs is in hundreds of libraries all across the world, and every day it gets added and more, and I can see in my dashboard kind of where it gets added. Um, then it's just really it's it's saturation for my name, and I I'll do more keynotes. I know that I will take a velocity of information and create like 5 keynote presentations from it for conferences. And what I get paid to keynote, um, is pretty substantial, um, versus like the number of books you'd have to sell or something like that. But because, like, again, the book is published, and now it's two books and things like that. But if I'm to go in and to keynote on something like school kids hitting finite voltage, or how to keep kids from burning out, like that could be a keynote, and then I could talk about the finite voltage stuff. And um, I mean, these are things that are what the book gets you, or an extra university course, or like even the university saying, hey, like we have whatever, you know we have 2 electives in this program, or one is in, sociology or something, and, yeah, whatever it is, and or psychology, and they'll say, you can use your book because it's a scholarly work, a tier 2 publisher. You can build a course around it, and then we'll put it out there, and right, people will take it. It'll be in our program. It will count toward a degree and whatever. So, I've got that going too. So I'm, starting to I'll meet with the university, and we'll sit down and talk about how that it could be a course. Well, then, so hey, Phil Henry saying, "Good morning, Doc." The goddamn bacon. Yo, you hit over 500. I did, because the funny thing, bacon, is I was doing a little channel maintenance, making, um, you know, just sure all of my playlist and everything was complete. And all of a sudden I looked in the corner, and I went from like 492 subscribers to like 495 to like 500 to like 505. And it was like just in real time. And I was like, what the hell? And I knew, I'm like, somebody has to be talking about this. So I went online, and it was Aaron. Aaron did a show, and he did one for you too. So your subscribership probably went up tonight. You can probably go in and see that it jumped. And Aaron did, like, short videos, like 3, 4 minutes. And he's like, hey, like there's some people out there. Like, he did one for me, Doc, and that one was done. And he did one for you. And then there were a few other people. And he said, they do good content. They're good people. Give them, followers, try to get them up to, 1,000. So that was cool. I sent him a text then, and I didn't know I went, and I saw it, and I said, "Hey, thanks for doing that." So yeah, Bacon, you got your own video from Cappy. So yeah, Troy Francis. So it's cool. Um, and our good friend Phil Henry in Germany. So Phil, I've been working on. You saw the firewood picture, so there's much more firewood in that room right now, and there's still probably 5 cords I've got to bring down there. And now I'm running out of space, which I've never had that issue with firewood, and I do have a lot of firewood, but um, so I gotta, like, I can make it work, but it's not ideal. Um, so yeah, and so we are. We were almost 70 degrees today. We, as in southern Wisconsin. Now it'll start to drop down, but like my firewood burning season is behind, because, I'm usually burning quite a bit in October. And by, oh God, so like I've got 5 months. Like usually the first week of April is kind of the end of burning firewood around here. So, hey, it's Shelter in Paradise. Just read the intro to School of Airs. I could imagine a School of Airs or education class based on the book. So, and yeah, hey, so Shelter in Paradise. If you have the book, that's awesome. I'm sure you probably read. I know that the intro's out there on Amazon. Um, if you are interested, if you don't have the book, there are 44 reviews up. Thankfully, they're all 5 stars on Amazon. I'm hoping there'll be like more than 50 by the time Philosophy of Information is released on April 15th. Um, but if you want a reviewer copy of the book, which is a PDF of the book, it's not an ebook, it's the PDF of the book. I am able to do that under contract, not to sell it to you and you can't redistribute it, if it is a review copy where you are reading it with the intent to review. Oh, you bought it? God, thank you. I appreciate that. So the book never, inflation didn't impact the book. It never went up in price after it released in 2019. Didn't go down in price either, but it's a really well made book. That's the thing too. Like, with a publishing company, you're going to get a book that isn't the pages aren't going to fall out and, discolored, and like I still have so this thing was at the university with me on Saturday, because this is a required text for the class that I teach, my own book, right? um, but the university had approved it. I've used it, and the students, they'll email and they'll say like, hey, like, it was great text, because I'll be like, chapter 20, we're going to look at the concept of social proof, so that we're going to explain that of Ballers and stuff like that. So this book is is the one I take to every author event from day one. This was the first book I ever received from the publisher, from for School of Airs, and this thing's still like new. Like the corners aren't bent. You can tell I've got all the little tags and stuff like that in there. Things highlighted, and it's traveled the world with me. The world, not really, but I mean, it's everywhere I've done author events, and it's going back and forth to class like 3 years. Book came out 2019. Um, so yeah, so it's really it's well made too. So when you're buying the book, it was funny. I was sharing earlier in the show. I was telling my mom, I said, "Yeah, the publisher priced the paperback for Velocity of Information at 35, and the ebook at 32, and then the hard copy, I don't know." I said, "Most be sending out like 50 or more hard copies that I'll buy, and I will send to friends, right?" And so the number of you will be receiving them, and so yeah, and if you're interested, Shelter in Paradise, I don't know who you are outside of like you being in here, but you can also, if you do want me to know who you are, um, so this is my that's how to get a hold of me. Um, and it's also like on my website here, safetyphd.com. I think there's a tab like find the safety or contact safety doc, and that's like media. So like TV and radio and or lawyers will contact me through that site for expert witness stuff. But let me know who you are. But so my mom's like, that sounds like a lot of money. I'm like, well, I don't set the price for one. And the price of book production is gone up because it's harder to get materials. I mean, the publisher's like, it cost us more to do this. And um, so like I'm it is what it is. And the thing is, like, once you I mean, relatively speaking, but I mean, the book has a lot of value. Like, there's 3,000 hours of work in that book. I mean, so you're getting that paperback for, 35 bucks. What that equips you with, I mean, that's you're getting a hell of a lot of value. And eventually, a year from now, when the audiobook comes out, that one will be probably 20, and it might even like 8, maybe like between 18 and 22. Like that's where that will slot in. That'll be like just strict audio though. You won't get like a PDF of the images in the book, like the figures, because sometimes audiobooks have a companion document. So it'll say like figure, 2.1, chapter 2, first figure, please see this. And so there's a few things you won't get, and it should be okay. Um, but that'll anyway. Um, Bacon wrote the book cost so much because it's sprung for a Kevlar cover. Yeah. Thank Bacon, thank you for leaving a review. So yeah, and Shelter in Paradise, thank you that you will leave a review when it's done. It's reviews are so big. The just the metrics and people just right. They want to know what other people, what their experience is with this book. What's stood out to them, and once you get into that kind of close to 50, it's just a real marker, right? That people have taken the time, to give their feedback on, especially at kind of a nonfiction niche genre book. So, and I check it every day, right? Like I know when uh, something is posted, when something changes, with the book, a new review comes up. So that means a lot to me. Thank you, everyone who's done that and or is considering um, doing that. And so, yeah, I appreciate. Bacon wrote, before I forgot, can you text me and let me know when you're usually free? Want to try to get you on next week. So I don't know if I have your number anymore. And I say it because my phone kind of got messed up. So like why if you can just email me and or just like email me and say like here's my phone number. There's my email up above. Um, then I will put you in and then I'll text you. Yeah. So tomorrow night on DLD, I'll be the guest. So that'll be a great show. He doesn't have a link up for it yet, but Bacon knows. Bacon maybe can put a link to DLD's channel. So I'll be a guest tomorrow night on DLD's show. We're going to be talking stuff like how the FBI's might be showing up at school board meetings, and not kind of like just as a speculation conspiracy theory thing. There was an actual memo that came out from the Attorney General Merrick Garland to the FBI on October 4th, saying by November 4th, you have to be giving guidance to school boards on how they can handle threats to board members and things like that. Yeah, Bacon, you email me. Thanks. So I think you have my like official email too. So either one, like the safety doc one, is kind of my secondary um, email. But however you want to get a hold of me, because I'm your friend. Um, so yeah, DLD after. So that's right there. That's where I'll be tomorrow night, and so I'm looking forward to that. We had a great talk. Yeah, Dark and I were talking about uh, not only kind of that FBI stuff, but then also like our social credit score. Like because I've been kind of sounding the bells on that for a couple of years. Um, that I think that's moving pretty fast, and then also kind of like avatars and avatar realism and deep fakes. I talked about that on PBS, and so we're going to get into that, and then also I think it bridges well into a lot of his 2A community and maybe 3D printing because um, right now, right, you can 3D print and not have a lot of that stuff tracked, and you can print things for yourself. And Zippy knows intellectual property rights, but what if suddenly, or not suddenly, but I mean legislation passes or whatever, and 3D printing becomes like all new 3D printers after a certain year, 2024, um, have to be connected to the internet, right? So everything that you print is there's a copy of it that's kept, and they could say like we're making sure intellectual property is maintained, that, but really what they're doing is just making sure, or they're trying to monitor that you're not, um, you know, maybe printing um, 2A, type things even for yourself. I mean, that's how you're printing and selling things, but who else? I don't know. I mean, all of these, it's just weird, right? Like I I just have this weird sense on where some of this stuff could be going. But so we had these discussions, and um, it'll be a thought provoking show because I'm not saying this is going to happen, right? But one of the things some people have been telling me is like they're like, there's no way I'll give up my old 3D printer, my current one, right? Even if they upgrade. It's kind of like the John Deere Freedom to Repair Act, or the right to repair stuff, where John Deere, if you have a tractor from 1950, like you don't want to get rid of that because you can fix it, you can make parts for it. But now, if you have a modern tractor and uh, you try to repair or replace something, the tractor's running its own audit with its computer system, and it's like, hey, this wasn't done by Ford, or like not Ford, a John Deere dealer, so like the vehicle's not going to start. You can find a lot of that stuff out there. That's one example. Um, but it's like, so what is right to repair? And it kind of looks like that legislation is taking more losses than wins right now. Um, so yeah, I mean, where does this all go? Um, Shelter in place 3D printing could resolve the supply shortages. You're right on. And I wrote about that in the Velocity of Information. How I believe we are one of the reasons we have supply shortages is we are now transitioning from just-in-time manufacturing, where something was made at the factory and then transported to the store or the consumer, to 3D printing, which would either be done at home or like locally. So think of like your local AutoZone. You go in and you need a fuel pump, something that doesn't have a chip in it. And so you have the VIN number for your vehicle, right? And they enter it in, and basically they have a machine that 3D prints it. Now you can say like metals and stuff is harder. It is, but GE now, and I wrote about, again, this is in the book. It's interesting. They can do this, and there are cement homes being 3D printed in Texas right now. If that's an article like a week ago, but um, there was a first electric engine that was 3D printed. So and food, right? Gen, there were a few studies that I wrote about in the philosophy of information of saying, um, when you go to restaurants in the next 10 years, so if you're going to a fast food restaurant, a lot of it is just going to be printed, um, and to save cost and whatever. And it's already happening. I think, Phil, in Germany, I read that there were a number of fast food restaurants that that are printing food now. Um, they want to prevent another Rick Sanchez in his garage. Oh my God, Phil! I love Rick and Morty. So yeah, Rick Sanchez. I'm a Rick and Morty junkie. So that's a great. Now I used to have a Rick Sanchez figurine out here, but um, so but Shelter in Paradise. I'm glad you wrote that, because I said, if you look at from let's say 80 to 2030. I wrote about this again in Philosophy of Information. 1980 was still pretty much warehouse. So you'd be building stuff, putting in a warehouse, and you'd have to expend what was in the warehouse before you would kind of go to your new product, right? So, things would get marked down, and then you have big transition into having to retool and stuff like that. And then in just-in-time manufacturing, which was big with Toyota and Japan in the 70s, but then in the 90s kind of became the industry standard, being adopted in the 90s, perfected through the 2000s. The warehouses then were gone, very little warehouse stock. So then things would be produced and it would go right out on the, truck or whatever, and get to the stores. And then you could also have faster turnaround because you didn't have all this extra product that you had to expend. Now, the problem was, right, when the pandemic hit and it went on for months, um, the warehouses were pretty much gone. So, you basically always had, if you had a regional thing like a hurricane or wildfire, earthquake, like you could bring supplies in. But like now that it was worldwide, just in time wasn't built in, especially to take interruptions in where you had truck drivers, ship dock workers, stuff like that. So everything kind of gets out of whack, and then of course chips aren't being, all this stuff. But we are also in this process of moving rapidly toward 3D printing and home 3D printers. And I mean, it's not going to be that uncommon in 10 years to have 3D printing at home, right? Like our friend Drew Bay has several 3D printers at home. During the coronavirus, they made open code so people could print parts and ventilators and donate them. And I wrote that in the book, and it's all cited, to hospitals and masks. And so, what if there's half of what you buy now? You just have a subscription to, yeah, an Amazon or an Amazon equivalent. I remember the Sears catalog, which is kind of weird because like that's kind of like Amazon, right? But in the day, like you'd have 1,000-page Sears catalog would show up at your house, and you could order anything. Even 100 years ago, you could order a house from Sears catalog. In 1920, you could order a house that would come, and you'd have to assemble it like on site. It's pretty wild stuff, Sears and Roebuck. Um, but yeah, so anyway, 3D printing, is probably going to be subscription based, and there'll be and there'll be 3D food printers. Like that's not even science fiction anymore. Like that is, again, Germany. There are some places it's very prevalent. Um, and there's a high end chocolate company. I forget. It was in the book. In there was a guy a couple weeks ago on Jimmy Kimmel, a chef, who now just wrote a cookbook, or basically like he's just teaching people how to interface with these 3D printers in big kitchens, right? Like you don't need all of this. And granted, I get the idea, like of trying to think about wrapping your mind around eating a 3D printed, piece of chicken or something like that, but the reality is where things are heading, right? Um, but anyway, like 3D printing homes, like 2 weeks ago, and I think even like yesterday in Texas, like 20 new homes going up that are 3D printed. Um, and I have a friend in Canada who said like portions of his home were 3D printed on location, and especially like duct parts of the so it could go around the ductwork, right? Like they could do some really fancy things of hiding the ductwork because they could 3D print some of these. I don't know the whole deal is telling me, but then some of the cement stuff was 3D printed, like in the. But I'm like, he's like, who would have thought, right? And but they've been using the technology for a while. But yeah, so that is interesting because you'd have raw product, you'd have to get in less refined product that would still have to come into your house. But again, think of that whole concept of going, maybe again to that auto zone and you're getting a part for your vehicle. And instead of them going to the back and pulling it off the shelf, they're punching in your VIN and hit the button. And, 18 minutes later, there it is. And, so it's crazy. And I was looking at how they're looking at where, like, these buildings in the future, how they're going to design, a restaurant and how they're going to design like these auto zones. They're just like retail stores, and it's going to be, it's kind of like remember at Walmart that when they had where you could bring in your camera and hook it up and your digital camera and they could print pictures off and how that was a big thing. They had this whole printing area and Walgreens stuff like that. It'll kind of be like that, right? Like they're already designing these places and how they're going to retrofit them in the next like couple of years. So you would be able to have your stuff 3D print it or like right on site, like and again, so as Shelter in Paradise wrote, we're heading toward that. So imagine now, like if you had to invest, if you are General Electric or venture fund capitalist or whatever it is, are you going to invest in just in time manufacturing and all the logistics and stuff that go with that? Or are you going to say, no, like I'm going to invest in 3D. I'm not going to this is kind of at its end stage. And the thing is, without the coronavirus, like we would still be doing just in time, I would say, up until probably at least 2030, 2032, 2035, and then it would transfer to 3D. 3D is probably now moved up to before the year 2030 for like home 3D printers, 3D in restaurants. I think we're there. And yeah, I mean, and actually zippy with drone. Remember how drones, I have a friend of mine a couple blocks away, and I did show Preston Rice. There are two podcasts on the Safety Talk podcast. He had real expensive drones. I mean, some of the first, commercial drones to come out. He had a business where it was like with realtors, and then I think with like engineer firms, so you could go on like bridges or like things that they couldn't get to, and all this very sophisticated process with these expensive drones, and they only had so much battery life too. And now I mean, we don't, and we thought like drones were going to be this big invasive thing too. Like people would have drones and they'd be outside of your house watching you and stuff like that. That never really happened, right? Like, and these drones would just be flying around everywhere as you're doing stuff. And I mean, honestly, like today, I don't, I think it's pretty rare to see a drone. Like it was probably more common 5 years ago, much more common, at least where I'm at, to see someone with a drone. So I think it's going to kind of be the same thing. It'll be like this. They'll be kind of clunky at first with the 3D stuff, and then it'll just become more mass produced and just adopt it, and people just be like, "Oh, that's what it is." I mean, look at how fast we went to flat screen TV from CRT. Like some of these transitions just are like boom. And I mean, like for example, the car, our second vehicle, which I talked about at the start. I mean, no backup camera. Just pretty traditional car, right? And now the one that we ordered to replace it, if it ever arrives, that thing has 3D vision cameras to see all the way around it, adaptive cruise, automatic braking. It has a built-in, navigation, lifetime navigation system to show all your GPS maps, all different LED. It has LED headlights. Imagine that, right? And inside all the LED and how you can sync your phone, like, and the vehicle that's replacing, like, had none of that. Um, so so I think, these things are just going to this is happening. I mean, we will get there. So it creates this real scenario right now of why isn't the supply chain getting fixed? Like, right? Like, I went to get a coffee this morning at the kind of chain gas station not too far from where I live. And then I usually, it depends, like, I'll usually grab soup. They have like the self-serve soup area. And because in the morning, like, the soup has just been put out. And I kind of like to do that instead of breakfast. And they had the soup, but they didn't have any of the bowls for it. And so I'm like, "What's the deal with this?" And they're like, Well, if you want soup, you got to put it in a coffee cup." Or, the coffee thing with the lid on it. And, and I'm like, "Really?" And so they're like, "Yeah, we don't have stock. We can't get any of this stuff in." That's the first time like that's ever happened. So you have like 2 cups, one is coffee, one is soup. And, and but so why isn't this stuff? Well, obviously, it's this shortage of people, but part of it, right? But the other part is these companies just aren't going to invest in fixing these just-in-time systems or logistics. Like, I've had three since in the last year. I've had 3 items of clothing I've ordered new from companies, all different companies, and they just get lost in shipping. Like, you follow it for a while and tracking person is not there. So I call a company and say, "Hey, like, this, there isn't. Where is this thing? Like, am I? When do I get a refund, or does it get sent out or something?" And in each case, they said they couldn't. They don't know where it is. Or they couldn't track it. So I'm like, okay, that's like just in time. That's logistics. Like, you should know where this is. Like the last RFD tracking, scan. This is really weird. Um, and then the stuff ultimately shows up, and in each case it did show up. And then I called the company and said, "Hey, it showed up. So." And you already refunded me. So, you can charge me again because the item arrived. And they'd be like, "No, it's fine. Like, just keep it." Like, each one of them. I mean, they just said it once they lost track of it on their side, they just declared it gone. So, like, if it arrives, it's yours. And it's just weird because I'm like, so a couple, at least $200 worth of merchandise. They're just like, if it shows up, just keep it. and and so anyway, you get to this. Um, we are. That's what people don't understand. Like, right? Like, why isn't this getting better? Well, because it's more likely we're moving toward 3D than to fixing just in time, because these two won't exist really simultaneously. It's kind of like warehousing. Warehousing gave way to just in time. Just in time is giving way to 3D. And no one expected 3D would arrive this fast, but it kind of has. The virus has pushed it. And if you're not going to invest in fixing the system anymore, you're not going to invest in probably truck drivers. Now, I think truck drivers really got screwed over with the whole essential non-essential thing. I mean, just as a quick aside on that, I think truck drivers that we should have had. They had no place to stop, bathroom breaks, stay like that. Like, truck stops should have stayed open, or the National Guard should have been there setting up places for our, truckers to pull over and get meals and bathroom and shower, stuff like that. But if you're looking and saying, well, if we can have some automated delivery where we don't have to have a truck driver in 3, 5 years, and we can buy these, like, that's where we're going to invest. We're not going to invest in a fleet of trucks. So let's go over here in the chat. Shelter impaired, or let's go. Let me go up a little bit here. Okay. Goddamn bacon said 3D printing registration topic was brought up on Dark Stream last week. Actually, that'd be good for you. Yeah, I'd like to talk about that because I have to address that in my school legal courses that I teach for administrators and stuff, and say it's it's a different game right now. And schools have 3D printers, right? So these high schools, and so what does that work? What does that look like? I mean, what can you print that's open code? What can't you print? And then if you're starting to print multiple things or you print something that's copyrighted, is it a subscription? Like again, if someone is doing a band performance, a solo at a school, and they have to buy the rights to the music for $1 or 2 to use it, I mean, um, what does this look like in industrial arts classes? And especially if someone starts making something and tries to sell it, um, copyright infringement and possibilities, or but so it's cool. Phil wrote, "The supply shortage is 100% a psychological crisis. Human factor cannot keep up with international trade." So, right, yeah, Phil. I mean, the propaganda component of this is exceptional, right? Like there's the manipulation and how I mean, people have been told, and so what they're just convinced, and it becomes self-fulfilling. um yeah. uh, so I think I addressed that pretty thoroughly in the velocity of information. But yeah, or maybe I'll have you on the show sometime and we can talk more about that. And I know the picture you share pictures where things are totally cleared out, or what you actually see in front of you is completely different than the narrative, whether it be like a flood or something like that, or versus like what the media might share. But I'll just kind of leave it at that. But Bacon wrote, "Hey, Phil, that and the ports in California being California, they're actually having to steam cargo ships to Texas to unload them." Yeah, it wasn't, and Bacon was, it was the port of Oakland, right? That the port itself, like whoever represents it, the workers and the organization was saying, like, come here because we have workers and stuff and what we could do with that. But yeah, take it. So this is a thing too. Like if the port stuff in California, part of that is because California doesn't allow a semi that's older than 10 years old or something to be a part of the, I don't know, trucker union to unload. So I mean, and now you're having to go with what, electric semi. I mean, all of these barriers to things. So like that's going to just propel either 3D printing, or you're going to get Texas or Florida to say, hey, like maybe we're going to retool some of our ports, and even where I'm at. So I was reading that so Duluth Superior has a very active port for commerce, especially for like grains and stuff like that. And they're retrofitting things now to do kind of like a mini cargo thing. I mean, you you can't get through the locks like the big cargo ships, but you could get. They do 1,000-foot freighters up there, that are filled with iron ore. So again, you'd have to locate where these boats are and stuff like that, but it could start to relieve some of that. So they're preparing for kind of the busiest time they've had since World War II, to have these smaller cargo, and maybe they just have certain cargo things come in, maybe ship or whatever. Um, I I don't know, but that's happening. Like that is actually happening. So some of these big shifts are starting to happen. Shelter in Paradise wrote, "Fewer people are owning all the factors of production, labor becoming a smaller factor, especially when you 3D print." Right. So ultimately, I mean, what you have to offer is use your labor. And Shelter in Paradise, it's a good point too to think about. Like, God, I remember as a kid in the 80s, Indiana Jones and Back to the Future, and actors and stars. And now, um, that's, I mean, if you're in Hollywood, you can, I mean, why would you pay an actor $100 million for a movie when you can 3D animate, uh, an actor, right? That you can do this avatar that is pretty close to real, and so this whole thing of like Hollywood and actors and things like that, I just don't. I think that's gone. And look at all the movies and the originality. And I know a lot of that, kind of culture and stuff like that too. But I think the days of, like a Harrison Ford and, like an Indiana Jones and, where you would actually have these sites, you'd go to what Petra and film these things and all of that type of stuff. I think it's gone. Um, so you're just going to have people competing for digital creation. So like that industry. So yeah, what do you add for value? I mean, what do you as a person, what's going to be this goes back and it's in the right away in the book, essential versus non-essential. The whole thing when the government came out in March of 2020 and we all woke up one day and we were either essential or non-essential. Um, that's huge. Like the psychological ramifications, the career ramifications. So, going forward, like if, um, you know, if you're going to change careers, you're going to make a decision saying, I want something I have the ability to work remote because what if, I'm, you know, doing something that is hands-on in an office and or, whatever, and suddenly that gets shut down because of virus, right? Like a dentist. Like what am that's and I talked to a few dentists about this, and they said, um, for example, like they said COVID was horrible for their business, right? Like there were months when the dentist was, shut down or they had to, you know, they had to go with such a thin schedule in order to have social distancing and be able to sanitize everything and, all this stuff. They said it just was killing their bottom line. Especially new dentists that had debt already. So like I, every dentist I talked to said, if I had to do this again, I wouldn't because it is an industry that's very susceptible to a pandemic, like in these declarations of saying, all these conditions. Um, Hairstylists, right? Hairstylists having to shut down. Carl Mankey of Ossawa, Michigan. And I wrote about Carl in Essential versus Non-Essential, 77-year-old barber. And he's like, I'm not shutting down, I'm drawing my line in the sand. And the police, locked his place up, but also we're telling him, hey, like we're with you on this. And they cited him like $9,000 for having a comb in his pocket and stuff. I mean, it's all in the book. And so essential versus non-essential, we have this weird psychological thing going on, and I don't think anyone's talking about it. Like, but it's happening. Root beer float versus non-root beer float. Root beer float plus additional root beer floats, and um, it is creating and continuing this stratification, and then what your access is and how you're kind of viewed. Um, and yeah, it's intense. And so, I really unpack that in the velocity of information. And again, it's something I think a lot of people just kind of forgot that happened. I mean, remember how jarring it was, um, that you were sorted, right? And you had no say in sorted. And sometimes, like, being called essential wasn't good. Like that meant, oh, you're essential. So, you're working at the grocery store. So we'll give you like hazard pay of like an extra dollar an hour. Well, that's crazy. That doesn't make sense. Like that whole thing was out of whack. But so shelter in paradise, fewer people are owning all the factors of production. Yeah, sorry, but you'd Bacon wrote, you still have to have the materials for the 3D printer filaments, wonder how much goes into that. So, right, you still have that product, raw product, and I don't know what goes into that, but it wouldn't be as refined, so it would be easier to store and send and stuff like that, right? Um, and you're not having to put all of that on a shelf for people to pick up. It would likely just be delivered to your house, right? I mean, if we think about like or how like Culligan kind of works, like with their water system now, just self monitors, and then the system just knows when to send it to your house. The people who subscribe to ink for their printers, like it gets down. Um, so that system will probably be pretty automated. But you're right. I don't know how refined the stuff is that goes into it, but I mean, one would have to think it would be substantially less refined, and plus, also, you're not going to have the extra waste product. Like you're not going to be producing stuff you don't need. You don't have to keep extra product on a shelf. Um, Zippy wrote, I wonder if the 3D print machine shops would become a thing, a community 3D print machine shop. I think so, Zippy. That's where I kind of see things. And I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen that already. Um, but I think I think that is right around the corner. A 3D print machine shop is being a thing. Zippy also wrote, assuming drones are cheaper than people, drones can deliver everything from point to creation. True, right? It's kind of it's battery life, which seems to have been somewhat resolved and will just continue to get better. And the other part with drones, at least in my when I wrote School of Airs, I talked to professional drone people like who did search and rescue after hurricanes. And when I interviewed them, they said the problem with drones at that time was if it rained, and the weather, if it was windy, it was hard to the drones weren't reliable. Like they couldn't hold up to that. Um, and now that doesn't seem to be an issue. The military had drones that could fly like in hurricanes and stuff like that. I don't know, like 5 years ago, or they were testing them out. And they were working fine. So now they've kind of trickled down. And the reality is, like, if you have a tornado or a hurricane, you're going to fly a drone anyway. I mean, you'd wait till it's done. If you're delivering stuff, you would get to point A to point B. Um, but yeah, I mean the drone stuff. I mean, really, and think about delivery, right? Like instead of having to go, well, we already have. When I was down at UW Madison, they have on campus food is delivered by not drones, but they're little automated vehicles. So, um, and so like if you order from the cafeteria or the Pizza Hut or whatever the hell they've got, stuff different stuff on campus, it just like shows up. And then you have your code, you punch and you get it out. But you're right. And being terrestrial, like having the wheels on the tracks in the snow, like that's kind of a bitch in Wisconsin. So, um, but right, like there'll be some point when drone delivery will just, it's a trajectory we're there for at least some things that it'll just happen. Um, that's a whole thing too, like with firefighting, right? Like that's every fire department now has a drone or multiple drones. Um, and so you come out to a barn fire, right? Like one of the first things, in addition to finding your water source and getting everything, but is somebody gets the drone out and they get the drone up so they can see from a bird's eye what's happening, what's involved, is the roof involved, and all of that. So um, that type of stuff is who would have thought? And police departments have the infrared drones, so if somebody takes off, they run away, they can find them. Or if somebody's lost, a person with Alzheimer's, or a person with autism, they leave. Now they can, and again, like these things, it's weird because 20 years ago we would have thought this stuff was just like so science fictiony, and maybe like somebody would have it, right? Like, and it would just be all like, oh my god. And now it's like it's common, right? Like it's just that's how these things kind of happen. um Bacon wrote to Zippy, drones are supposed to put me out of business like 5 years ago. Seattle, everywhere I go, we're still giving referral bonus to 600, 900. So Bacon, you'll never be replaced by a drone, by the way, buddy. um but yeah, actually, um I think of the and some of the places you showed me, especially during, some of the activities of 2020, I think the drone would be beat out of the sky with a baseball bat. Wouldn't that be the end of the drone? Or, it would be lassoed down, so, yeah, um, but so, mandates, kill more people than pandemics, Zippy wrote. Um, Bacon wrote, "I had not considered railway side of transportation. Thought I had was about commercial transportation. Planes still have pilots, even though the planes mostly fly themselves." True, and we have like a major rail line comes through our community. Um, so and so I would expect that. Yeah, rail. I mean, rail is already like significantly automated, right? Because you don't have the caboose. You might have what, 100-car train with like two people. And so and all of that stuff is GPS tracked and monitored, and every car GPS or a barcode to know what's on the car and all of that stuff. But um bacon, zippy to bacon, forgive me half a thought when I say railway, I mean fixed pass. Railway's half dead. I mean, they could revive it. Mini jet drones could transport to locations around the nation. Yeah, I think the thing of like the truck drivers, um, w- I know that we're in this phase where I, I, I don't, I see that as going away, right? Like you'll still have some drivers, but that will become more and more automated. Um, Zippy, I still think simplified revenue share, 20% of intake paid to IP owners to use any IP, break up monopolies. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, and how do we get people on board with that kind of logical thinking? We kind of have to have a renaissance. Um, but the other part though is right there. I mean, if you're the companies that are making the 3D printers or like the subscription companies, and you want people to be able to use things without, uh, you know, fear of repercussions. So you want them to use your products. That might happen. I mean, that could be the push from industry to get it saturated out there. So they're selling these things. They don't want people to freak out. They want more transparency, and let's maybe adopt a system. So maybe it's not that far off. Um, Goremonger wrote, "That would be an excellent scene or bit. In the middle of a tornado, a home gets blown away, inhabitants long gone, but an Amazon drone delivers their package like nothing is really wrong. Really lacks humanity." Goremonger, actually, you are right. Like that is that would be perfect for a movie. I would say like it'd be a perfect Saturday Night Live skit, although I think Saturday Night Live has just kind of gone to trash. But um, it's like a Key and Peele like skit right there, isn't it? I mean, that is brilliant. Like a 3-minute skit, and yeah, it is. I think in talking with Katie Pashon and Cajun Navy Relief and Cajun Army and stuff like that, they are close to, for example, hurricane comes in to Louisiana, Texas, Florida, whatever. That when they come into areas with boats, they're usually rescuing people and things like that. That's been and the drones weren't that big of a thing, and a lot of it was prohibited by, she said, like FEMA and things like that. They would put no fly orders because they didn't want like videos, I guess, of dead bodies and things like that. Um, but like you could use drones. I mean, you could carry supplies so far with a boat, and if you could, fly out and you knew somebody was in an area that you might not be able to get to, and this is after the storm, like the next day or something, you might be able to fly out, that care package, or, you know, um, so, enough water or food. Atham, I think you told me about this. I don't know if Atham's in the chat anymore, but Atham said that there was a hiker who got stranded on the side of a mountain, and um, the emergency responders had a drone, and so they flew the drone up to be, like 2 feet away from him, and it had the camera and a little speaker, and they were talking to him, and then, I think they flew him up, like, a bottle of water and something to eat with this drone too as they were before they're doing the rescue. So this stuff is just you think about too, like, think about lifeguards and beaches, if, uh, the ability to do, the impact that that would have. I don't know, we're just in this, you know, this whole Nick Schuliner was talking to me, and he's the mechanical engineering, student, right? And he was saying, like, one of his profs was talking about it was right after, the university shut down, Washington State. So it was, like, in April, and they started to go online, and the professor was saying, he said, If you wanna, if you wanna be a multimillionaire, come up with a way to sanitize, these big stadiums and these things that were never they're still new and they're still in use, but they were never kind of designed for panics. Like, come up with a drone-based, uh, you know, aerosol sanitizer or UV light or something that would then GPS itself and be able to, like, sanitize, an arena of 18,000 seats, or a team of these things in a matter of an hour or something like that, and you'd be set. Um, so, um, I see too many dead rails here in the South US. Yes, we have them. The brunt of transportation is road. Um, it's interesting because by me, like, the rail also supplied the big power plant, the coal power plant, which is now being taken offline permanently. And they spent billions to update this thing. It was probably, I think it was built in the 60s or 70s to modernize it, like 5 years ago. And that's one of the reasons, like, my utilities are very low. And now they're, like, saying you can't have it. So they they announced, like, they're shutting it down, like, in 2 years, and they're putting wind turbines up. I went out of town, I started to see those. But anyway, the rail cars, like, there was just nonstop coal coming in, for this thing over the rail. Um, Zippy wrote to the Bacon, point to point rail, like transport that avoids bad weather zones, etc. Flying transport could handle a lot of product, but I don't see that completely replacing trucks. Yeah, I think there'll always be some trucks. I think we're at probably the peak truck part right now. I mean, once and if we start looking, we as we look back in time, I think we'll see, like, this is the point when we were most saturated with trucks, and then that will be stepping back. Yeah, but even though, like, the media and just kind of the contemporary thing is like, we need more driving, we need more trucks, they're not recognizing we're in the shift, right, of how things are being transported autonomously, or also, drone or 3D printing, that's happening. So, that is why some of these systems aren't evolving. So when I wrote about, Robert Travis, the crab boat, who was on the crab boat, in Alaska twice in the early 2000s, it's just dangerous as hell, right? Number one dangerous job in the Bureau of Labor Statistics at the time that he did it. And, we were talking recently, and he said, like, the incentive to make that safer right now, it just isn't there, right? Because if you are an Alaskan crab boater, um, and so, for example, would you invest in building? Usually, these boats are, like, retrofitted, like Coast Guard boats, or things like that. Anyway, but, um, would you invest in sensors on boats to keep people, like, alert them sooner when waves were going to hit, or specialized equipment? And the reality is, like, for you probably wouldn't. Like, why would you do that? Because in the next 15 years, a lot of that would is going to be automated. Like, you'll still have boats, but you're not going to have deckhands. Like, that will be robotics, or it will be remotely controlled. You'll just have people who will be up in a wheelhouse or some protected area. They're not going to be out on the deck. So as he said, like, we're in this weird phase where why would you spend the money to make these things safer when just naturally in the next 10 years, they're going to be automated. Like, that's just the way that it would be. And right, if you do that, they're not going to fatigue. These robots likely, um, and it's so. I mean, you hit this crossroads in industries where it doesn't make sense to make these things safer, and it's kind of like, I kind of wonder that with vehicles too. Like, how much investment now with, so much being put into electric vehicles and just trying to sell people on that. I'm not sold on that personally, that and that would be reliable in cold weather. But anyway, like, so that's where the policy stuff is going. But how much advancements will be made on the driver experience? I mean, we're having all of these things. Like I said, that vehicle I ordered, like all of these things, like lane sensors, automatic braking, all of this stuff, adaptive cruise. I mean, um, it's basically, you're not you're not improving the human, you're improving the machine, and pretty soon the machine will just be a transport for the human. So it's like, you know, why? I mean, why would people even have driver's license? Some people, right, in 10 or 15 years. I mean, if you basically would have, you'd have to subscribe to it, probably, or rent it, but an autonomous vehicle. So I mean, if you're elderly, disabled, or you just don't want to learn the rules of the road, um, and you want to outsource it, and rent a vehicle. And so, Goremonger, yeah, Doc, a bigger drone with something to grab on could be a great way to save those drowning. So, yeah, I mean, or to drop like a life buoy, right? I mean, to drop that, down to somebody, and I mean, it could hover and it could lock in position right, above them. So if you did launch, a rescue from shore, I mean, which could be autonomous, a vehicle coming out there too or something, it would go right to them. Like, you'd have this exact coordinate. And so, I mean, I when I wrote about, the rescue of 500,000 people in 9 hours in Lower Manhattan on 9/11, and how that boat rescue that just worked, right? People just figured it out. And I was talking a week ago with my class, and I said, if that happens in 5 years, like something similar, it would be, you'd have like a drone component, right? Like, you, like your police department or something, you'd have like a drone, and it would be directing people what to do, and a loudspeaker, and I said, all of this stuff is just so weird to think about. And I said, but the other part on that kind of gets, is this whole ability to spontaneously handle chaos is eroding for people, because they're not interacting with chaos situations as much. Like authentic situations, I guess, are being kind of shielded from those. Example is, like, kids taking virtual field trips has become a big thing. So instead of actually, going out to the woods, or, you know, Yosemite or whatever it is, like, they're logging in and doing it virtually on the screen, or else they have their 3D, what is it? The metaverse, right? Like, the whole thing of, like, just experience the world, virtually. And that's becoming a big thing in schools. And I warned about that in School of Airs, of saying this whole roam zone, like 100 years ago, studies was saying kids had 3 miles around where their house was, and their parents basically, like, just, go out and play and start jumping over logs and going through streams, and come back around supper time or whatever. But, and then, so that was, like, the great grandfather, and then the grandfather was a little bit smaller than the dad, was like a mile, and now, like, the kid is to the end of the block. And they said, actually now, like, now the kid is basically from the kitchen to the couch, because they just log in and they have their VR headsets and they never leave the house. So you don't have these authentic experiences where if you, I, as a kid, I mean, the town I grew up in, swinging bridge and all that stuff, you learn that and the balance and the navigate and you get in situations. Now you have to kind of find your way back. And, um, just, you just don't have that. You're in the simulation. So, you know, and people aren't generally kind of stressed. So that's one thing I wrote in the velocity of information is, because people haven't experienced stress, um, when I mean, like, they have stressful lives, but they haven't experienced it, maybe shortages or some of these things in contemporary times, they just kinda lose it, because it's the first time they're going through it, and they haven't kind of, built up to this, like, through their lives. Um, so, Goremonger, yeah, WKUK was what I grew up on for sketch comedy. So, was that, like, with John Candy? Was that the I'm trying to think what that was. Atham says I'm here. The Bacon, Railway Cars, Goremonger. Oh, sorry, I'm a little behind here. Shelter in Paradise production, we will be unessential. Yeah, I didn't wanna get Shelter in Paradise, like, we're thinking very along the same wavelengths here, yeah, like, send me, like, an email, at least so I know how to get a hold of you, or I'd like to send you, one of the signed books, and, like, if you want us there are people I know who still, they preserve they're anonymous, they'll, like, just send to this post office box or, like, use whatever name, people I've known, especially if they work in government stuff. I'm like, "That's fine." Like, I'll do that. Like, I don't I'm Doc will, never sell you out, by the way, but yeah. So, anyway, this right? So, it's a deep question, and as you read through the velocity of information, like, you would get it, like Bacon, everybody, I mean, in the chat would get it, and I think, though, a lot of people will get it when they read through that because I spent a lot of time in essential, non-essential. When I come back to it at the end of the book of kind of, where does this fall? And as you said, not is Shelter in Paradise, not just essential or versus non-essential, but unessential. There's a strong hint to that, um, at at the end of the book. So the nuanced reader, like, you'd get it. You'd be like, "Oh, so this is kind of saying, at what point," it was kind of going to happen with Singularity anyway, to some extent, right? Like, it's like the movie I, Robot. I mean, would you be, people would, it's, be living, but what would society, what would, that's a image of what society might be, or Wally, like, right? That's the cartoon, but there's probably, like, some cross of how things would actually come together with that. Um, but yeah, and actually, I think what you wrote there is what I would use when I do, book events. I will say, we start out with essential, non-essential, and I said, and then with just advancements, and then just as humans, like, we're I think struggling to find agency and purpose, and, like, we don't marvel anymore at things. So, I mean, that's so my genuine experience. So Saturday, I taught in a 130-year-old building at this private university that I've been with for 18 years, and every time I teach there, I marvel at this building. I honestly, when I come up to it, I kind of pause and look at it because it's so ornate, like the craftsmanship on this. And when you go inside and you have these winding wood, um, stairways that take you up to the second floor on each side. I mean, it's kind of like a Titanic theme, honestly. It looks pretty similar to like the grand staircase, and and the woodwork, right? And still the original slate boards, and all of this is extremely well maintained, and it hasn't been tampered with and modernized. I mean, there's some elements, but it's been brought in very carefully. But there's this marveling of what we were capable of in creation and agency and purpose. And I don't necessarily, and even not that it has to be that, but you know do you really marvel at, like, how a computer monitor works, or a car, or a lawnmower, or, even just it just, uh, people, the right, books and I mean, I don't think we spend enough time, uh, in that and I don't know what it is, but there's something tangible with that. It's something I feel, and when I'm walking through the hallways and I'm leaving the building, it's a slow process because I'm looking at all of this really fine, ornate woodwork and carvings and sculptures. Within the building, it's a religious, university, and I'm just like, this took. I mean, this wasn't ordered off the shelf. This wasn't a catalog. This is the only version of this that exists, and there was some craftsman or team that spent the time doing all of these things and making it work out and making the university like name into it and all this. I'm like, how in the hell, like, and today just it was like what it's like the is it Petra? It's in the one Indiana Jones movie, but they carved it into the side of a stone, the stone wall. So you're going through there, and then it looks like it's a building, but they carved the whole thing at once. Like, um, there's going to be no mistake with that. But yeah, agency and purpose is, and I think people you see this as people are angry, right, and people don't feel that what they're doing contributes, or they're not adjusting. Um, and the fact that you can unilaterally have these essential, non-essential things come down, and uh, 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 let's go over here to our good friend Elephant Armpit. Bill Maurer recently had a great segment calling out the crazy changes to language over the Pandy worth a watch. So thank you. An Elephant Armpit. I wrote a chapter calling Vocabulary to Lexicon. And in the chapter in Velocity of Information, it was the word preference when Amy Coney Barrett was for Supreme Court. And she had used the term preference, and the response to it was extremely negative, and that wasn't her intent. And the next day, it changed in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. So I wrote about all of that, and the Merriam-Webster made a statement on it saying, "Oh, we regularly update our dictionary." But no, you did that because of that. Um, so yeah, as a speech language pathologist, I'm licensed, and that was my original career, and I still continue to do some of that. Um, Vocabulary and lexicon are very areas I'm very familiar with. So vocabulary is, what um, the words that we know and things like that. And lexicon, so like social distance becomes a lexicon word. It's not only a word we hear, but it has a meaning associated with it. So if I say social distance, you're thinking 6 feet away. So that is something that became part of our vocabulary and lexicon very quickly. It's very rare for words and vocabulary to also become our lexicon. And like that happens once or twice a year. For example, like in 2017, the word spaghetti map um, became was a vocabulary word that became saturated. Like a lot of people knew what it was. It was like hurricane maps. They'd run 1,000 simulations and show you look like pieces of spaghetti coming up, and you never knew like which way it was going to get. Um, but if you said spaghetti map, like someone could visualize it, they could actually draw it, they would do that. So we went and all these things, right? That I wrote about several. Bacon knows. Bacon kept a list of these things. Bacon, you should probably bring that out. I'll tell you what to do, but I mean, it would be interesting on one of your shows sometime to revisit that and just remind people, because Bacon was right on it. And we did a show together, Pandemic Lingo, and he had like 18 terms that were new during the pandemic, contact tracing, and I mean, obviously like things that existed before but not in a popular vocabulary, and then they became lexicon. And so yeah, so elephant armpit, I as in my university courses, it's hard to keep up with the changes to language and interpretation as I'm writing things out. Um, and yeah, so I've I'll check out. I'm gonna I'll make a note and I'll search for that. Um, so Zippy wrote, I am uh, s- uh, superposed. People gush about e-waste when air-driven motors could give us 100 miles per gallon for compacts. Recycling needs a huge evolution to make e-waste vehicles worth it. So electric vehicles. Yeah. So it's always, those questions always, it's weird when you ask people about, so I have a friend who's building a house right now, and he built this really big garage, um, because he's like, well, I need room for charging ports because I assume that all of our vehicles will be electric at some point, because so, and but then we also get in this like, well, where's the electric going to come from? So he's like, well, I'll put solar panels. I'm like, but I mean, okay, I guess. And how are you going to, the batteries and e-way, who knows? Like, to me, like all of that is being politically pushed fast. Again, it's, if you go back though, what was it? Edison had electric vehicles, in the 1920s. I mean, in New York, it was pretty common to have an electric vehicle, and when you drive so far with it, and then when your batteries would give out, you just switch out other batteries. Um, so I don't think the whole concept of electric vehicles is necessarily bad, but just like you have to still produce electricity. And like where I'm at, they just shut down, they decommissioned this power plant, which is fully functioning. And people are kind of like, what the hell? But, um, you know, you're, I mean, where are you going to get this? Where's this power going to, to come from? So Bacon wrote to Zippy, where's the energy compressed air? Yeah, um, Bacon wrote, it got up to near 20 of those by the time we were done. I'll see if I can find a list. Yeah, Bacon and I were uh, coming up with this. So it's really Bacon that was doing the work on that, and then just keeping me apprised. But Bacon's like really, Bacon, you really tune in. You see things very, I don't know if I want to. I can't even find the appropriate word. Not even holistically, but you see this nuanced interaction of how society functions, right? And from day one, you've always been able to articulate that really well, especially in your writing, and then on your shows. But in your writing, like going back to your blog post of 2 years ago, a year ago, like I think I said to you once, it's like a panoply. I don't even know if I got that term right, but like you shift yourself from here to here to here to here to here to here in these perspectives as you look at things and write about them, and that's the way like you were able to pick up, I think, on those terms. Yeah, shelter in place, shelter in paradise is putting, and um I think that was on the list. So that's also included in philosophy of information. It's on a visual. I have a diagram that's split into 4 pages. That's a custom one that Amy, does, this Kate DiStefano worked with me on, and she's credited on the diagrams. And but yeah, I mean, people don't, when you point these out and you're reading it, you'll be like, oh my god, like yeah, we did have all of these terms, essential, non-essential, shelter in place, contact trace, that vocabulary, and then they became lexicon, and that's really hard for people, again, speech language, especially kids, to process a changing lexicon. That it's very uncomfortable. It's unusual. Like they just don't have to deal with it that fast for that to hit them. And so you're seeing it in speech language referrals coming out, like kids with language deficits, and then also masking is producing a lot of articulation problems. in sounds that typically kids don't have problems with. So speech language, K and a G, S, THs, those are very frequent sounds, developmental sounds that would be worked on in speech language. Not an M. You don't work with kids who because they can't make an M. They can't go moo or many. And the reason is, as you look at me, I can show you that I'm pressing the lips together. It's also a sound that we hear because it's lower resonance. So, like an S or TH, if you have some hearing loss, that's going to be harder to hear. If you're doing a K and G, that's back in the throat and where you have to put your tongue up. So it's stuff you don't see as well. But kids, I mean, I can work with a kid for 10 minutes and they've got an M. Any speech therapist can do that. That's not magic. But that's what you're seeing for referrals because if a kid is masked, they're not sure. Is that an M, an N? They haven't seen it modeled. They just haven't. So you get these referrals for that are coming in now, and it's like, whoa, kids they're really far back because they haven't had that feedback. So it is really changing. We don't realize how much because we haven't had to deal with it that right learning speech language not speech learning your phonemes your articulation as a kid is really dependent upon visual cues for a significant amount of that. So yeah. um, Zippy said, I'm no engineer, just a tinker and want to be a mad scientist. Yeah. I'm trying to become a chaos. What did I write? Empirical chaosicist, or there's an actual term. I'm trying to become, I think what did I, what did I say? Chaos, um, chaos empiricist, chaos engineer. Yeah. Right. Because those are so chaos engineer. Um, those are people who they fatigue, they mess with systems and try to figure out how the systems can still maintain. I think Netflix, like the dude, um, God, Colton Andrus is his name. He worked with Netflix, and he would like pull cables and wires and stress systems and take things and all this wacky stuff, and then try to figure out how to be resilient to that. I think Amazon, he did a TED talk, and then like Amazon, something went wrong with their system, and they were losing like $1 billion an hour or something like that, and they brought him in, emergency, and he was working on their stuff and how he got it up, and then but he's huge into. So I kind of see myself. That was one of the things in writing the book is I wanted to show my depth as a social scientist with an awareness of chaos, and I think I did that. Like, um, in right. So I I wanted to add that. Um, so Zippy wrote, "Well, to be fair, gas engines were more efficient back in Edison's time." So, yep. Um, Zippy, the problem with vehicles, renewables, if you have to replace the batteries, turbines, engines more frequently, then you spend more for less and need more resources. Yeah. And the question, right, is um, are we going to have individual ownership of vehicles, right? Or in 20 years, are you going to just subscribe and lease a vehicle and then they would mandatorily be turned back in? And the argument for that could be, and this could be like on dark show tomorrow too, but the argument for that would be, well, then we'll always have modern vehicles that can connect to each other, the um, computer side of it, and we'll have safer vehicles. And remember the old thing when was it Obama, pour sand and sugar in your gas tank of your vehicle and get rid of it in that initiative. And like there were a lot of good vehicles that got wiped out by that. um so but yeah, the whole thing too of how long will it be, I mean, and how many, it's not only that, Zippy, right? It's like how many people would prefer a vehicle that is leased as kind of the main option. Like, how many people just want that? They want people to take control. They want less thinking, less choices. They want to be told what to do. And if you came out and said, as and maybe your insurance would be less and other things because, right, you're having a more modern vehicle that communicates, and most people would just go with it. That's the thing. Um, they're think about, everything we've kind of seen already, how people just kind of go with things. Most of the people, the majority of people, not everybody, but like a majority would. And, if it was marketed and the propaganda was there and whatever. Bacon wrote, I remember you writing a review on my work stock. Really do appreciate that from a published author, no less. So, well, thank you. I actually do remember writing that. So, um, I was sharing. I think I wrote under when Aaron did the thing for you today, there tonight. I wrote under there. I'm like, yeah, bacon is very. What did it? Oh God, what did I write about you? It's just you're very thoughtful, but it wasn't that. It was something else. So, um, but no, very intellectual. It goes beyond that. I don't know. You're a good guy, Bacon. You're a hard worker, um, and you're a kind person, right? Like if you would help anybody out, um, and you have a really good sense, a societal vibe sense, um, and yeah. So I'm glad your channel is growing. I mean, honestly, I I stay up on Friday nights, even though, like, I am tired and if the next day I gotta leave at 4 in the morning to, like, drive 90 miles to get to the university, like, I stay up for your show, um, because, I mean, I enjoy it, and but it's time zone stuff. It's kinda crazy, but Elephant Armpit, kids are half conditioned already for an evolving lexicon since they are growing up with a spotlight on gender identity and pronouns. Yeah, you're right. Now it's happening, right? So, um, kids today are expecting um, that. And the thing is, I like with my kids, I don't know if there's inter-rater reliability, right? If how I don't think schools are instructing things in a certain way, or how like even TV shows or so I think they're aware of it, right? But it's still very different across their environments. But you're right, it is a much more heightened, it's more prevalent, so it's not, um yeah, the lexicon is much more fluid than, it was a couple of years ago. It's a good point. Um, a shelter in paradise, a chaos sociologist. Yeah, I I'm trying to so when I wrote my bio for the book, I was very careful of how I worded it, right? And I had a lot of people review it, and I said, I'm not trying to assume a title that I don't have the credentials for. I'm not an engineer, so I can't say like a chaos engineer. I am a researcher, right? I can say that. And so it's just it's very carefully worded. And there's also things I'd left out of there to not kind of make me seem narrow. I mean, I kind of throttled off the school safety stuff quite a bit in the book. Um, well, I mean, it's not really in the book at all, but like in my credentials, I really throttled off that because if you do that, people then kind of just frame you in that. And I'm not, that's fine. Like, and I do a lot of work in that area. Like I consulted at 10 o'clock this morning with a superintendent going through significant, you know, school safety matter in a district. And did exceptional work with that. But I'm like, oh, um, I I don't I don't want people. I want people to see the depth of what I'm capable of beyond this, right? So if that makes sense, I'm not trying to say like still very much, school safety is very important. Continue to advance there. I want people to see though that there's another component, and I think by recognizing that component, it strengthens that component plus the school safety component, if that makes any sense. So I don't know if it does. If it does, you can help me understand it. I don't. It does make it made sense in the moment. Bacon wrote to at Elephant Armpit. Very true. It worries me this generation coming up will be tasked keeping the lights on. Um, yeah, I, right. Things. I mean, things get complex. My brother had a water heater delivered last week, and it leaked in 3 places, and like some other parts were wrong, and it was replaced, and that one had issues, and like just so some of this is is it assembly or people aren't checking these things anymore. Or, um, so Zippy wrote to me, rent own society is only plausible when everything is cheap. That's never going to happen. They will never make it cheap enough. Um, okay. I mean, I didn't think about it. Um, I would you say though, like the 3D printing, and maybe you can put a comment on this. By the way, if you haven't smashed the like button, please do. And any algorithm, like even down below, like say like here's an article about 3D or something else. It helps. But but yeah, I but if it's so remember like the I guess like the Sears catalog, right, for 100 years, or like a 1950 Sears catalog, and you get now Amazon. And I wonder if we're going to like a subscription based um, society. Maybe it won't be cheap, but it'll only be accessible through a subscription. I don't know. Yeah, the whole thing of cheap kind of, you're right. That's a good point because like the house we lived in, or we live in right now, was built in 1979 with all electric heat because the power plant had just been built. And the thought was, this will be so cheap, you won't even worry about it. Right. That was how. And then in the 80s, that all changed. And this house had a natural gas furnace put in and all the ductwork. So it's kind of wonky. Like it's fine now. I mean, like old house, they had to do that anyway. But like, what a myth, right? Um, and even like if you could do it cheap, or like if you had nuclear power or stuff like that, and would anybody allow it to be cheap and not make money off of it? I mean, you know, it's a business is greedy and best interest of people and just this common good. And I don't know. Um, Bacon wrote, "You mean less autonomy, Doc? I would bet good money EVs are being pushed in part because even the fastest charge leaves you a sitting duck for half an hour, plus gas doesn't require any possible coating." Yeah, I mean, that's a God. Yeah, that's a great point. And, and Bacon, like today I went and got gas for my car because over the weekend, I did all the driving. And I'm thinking, I'm pulling up in 2 minutes, it's all done, transaction. And I'm like, what if what if I had to be here for 15 or 20 minutes? And then like, wouldn't other people just be pulling up when they're perpetually kind of be long lines? I mean, I guess it's one thing if the charge lasts for 1,000 miles or something, but I'm just like, it's already busy the way it is. So like how does I mean, who are the people who are working these systems out? Um, I, I just don't get it. I just don't see it. Um, um, Zippy wrote, my OCD likes processes, how things ebb and flow. Zippy wrote to Bacon, well, given how all new cars, even as ones are high tech and computer controlled, Bacon wrote to Zippy, I wonder how that would be done. And very true. It's one reason I keep my 90s car aside from being able to work on it with other certs. Yeah. So, Bacon, what you're bringing up right now is this internal dilemma I'm having with my 14-year-old vehicle, which we were going to get rid of when, we ordered the new one, which is, the high tech machine, right? I mean, I've never owned anything like what we ordered like this. Um, but I'm like, the one that I have is I could keep it going. I mean, there's certain kind of things I'd have to invest in, and one accident, the car's done. It's not worth anything um, at this point. But I'm kind of like I can fix things like that are on it, and I don't have to. I you know. Um, but is it just like am I fighting a losing battle kind of anyway? Because at some point the vehicle is going to be gone. I have to replace it with something anyway, and I don't know. But right, like God's sakes, I remember, I remember working on my engine, and changing out my plugs and your, you know, um, plugs and wires and brakes and I mean just everything, right? Like it was just, and it was all that competency is gone now. I mean, you mess with a vehicle, it will kind of lock you out, right? That's like the John Deere thing. I mean, if you try to fix it on your own, like it won't start. Um, so Zippy wrote, trying to argue with the socialists, you hand out a ton of money, the market will raise costs to get that money. True, they do not see the connection. Inflation, deflation, price hiking, and free government money. Yeah, it's kind of like I was talking to somebody, and they're like, look at how the price of groceries and gas and stuff is up. I'm like, yes, right. And, stimulus checks went out and other things went out and adjustments kind of happen to suck up some of that money. I mean, and to some extent, but um, I don't know. Um, God damn, Bacon wrote, just imagine needing to have to say high enough social credit score to recharge your Tesla. So, and Bacon, I mean, I hope that Dark and I talk about this tomorrow because I think that's completely plausible that the social credit score, God, was it Utah has like your barcode now has there's like 20 things like it links to, including your credit score and other stuff. It's pretty wild. But that's you're absolutely right with this though. I mean, if you're in China, this is already happening. I mean, the system's been in place and this exact type of thing is happening, but that's it's yeah, to recharge your Tesla, to yeah, be able to down, I mean, it could go to everything from your internet speed to, I mean, there'll be some people who just won't comply with it. There'll be scofflaws and these underground networks and stuff like that, and whether how that works. But but think of it this way, and I wrote about it in the Velocity of Information. If in March and April of 2020, there would have been a government campaign and it would have said, hey, it's going to be the Fitness and Fortitude campaign. And there were actually things like this back in World War II. And so I kind of do parallels, but I said, let's just imagine that you could have gone online and this already existed. Like the military army had this in 2015 for civilians working in the military. They could log into this portal and for fitness and kind of like sync your Fitbit and stuff like that. But so just imagine there's a system where the president comes out and this like Google or committee or whatever and Apple, and they're saying, hey, like Fitness and Fortitude, log in, um, and we'll track your device will be like a leaderboard, or if you're doing it at home, whatever fitness stuff that you have at home, like lifting Kansas, whatever it is, like you could come up with something. And there's this, you can have groups, like you can pick your own group, your family, or you could pick other people to be like a team in this leaderboard type thing. And then like, let's say after 5 times you log in, like that you've exercised in your house. And you have to be careful not to do like a stigma with exercise and fitness too much, but like just saying like that, you've done, you've walked around your house for 10 minutes a day or something like that. And then you do this little journal entry or take this little online thing of like fitness or whatever, like a fitness tip. And after the fifth thing, it says, here's your fitness badge. Remember the badge you used to get in elementary school if you did the shuttle run fast enough? Here's your fitness badge. And if you can post it to social media so everybody can know like you got your fitness or your tier 1 badge. People would do that. That's a thing, right? In video games, in the whole industry of giving people and certifications, giving them different badges, the digital badges. Imagine how people would have jumped at that. Most of I mean, for a while, for a month or 2, people would they couldn't wait to get online, right? That would have been the thing to post and to show people, "Hey, look at," so people can like it and respond, and maybe, like, if you do it so much, you get a 15% off discount at Amazon, or so I wrote about that in detail saying, that to me, it was kind of strange that that didn't happen, like, there wasn't this big jump to from even social media trying to get people, um, i more inculcated into the different social media streams, but I think I thought of it and nobody else did, but, um, so, yeah, so Bacon wrote, "Just imagine," yeah, that social credit score, and I really I stayed away from that in the book because I I had to kind of, like, be careful on the conspiracy theory stuff, especially in a scholarly work, to just, like, lightly touch on that, but, Zippy wrote, "Well, half of the problem with oil is monopolies are not refining in country. Pipes do not help any when the monopolies have you both ends and all holes." Yep. Hey, Doc is still going. Damn, Anthem, yeah. Um, Zippy wrote to me, "Well, engine is what, 10 to 20 grand, transmission 10 to 20 grand. I mean, 40 grand to have a vehicle you can work on. Be better than spending 30 to 50 on a new one." Yeah. So, yeah. Um, I already made, kind of a commitment to, and well, and one of it is, I want a four-wheel drive uh, vehicle because I do, and my family's north of here. And after being in an accident in 2019 where I was almost killed, um, and not that four-wheel drive necessarily would have prevented that, but um, I'm getting older and I live in a cold weather area with snow and stuff like that. Plus, a little more weight in a vehicle and distribute it, and more airbags and crumple zone. I mean, one of the things, like if you see like the Henry Ruggs when he smashed the Corvette at 126 miles at collision and killed that person, the RAV4 is awful, but like he walked away, like the Corvette, absorbed all of that in the airbags. And so it's part of, like, with my kids driving now, if I'm putting in a vehicle, I'm going for this higher safety rating. But everything you're saying makes sense, all right. Like there's really no argument against what you're saying. I'm probably making the psychological straw man to just convince myself to do this. But Shelter in Paradise wrote, "Things aren't built to be repaired these days." Yeah, right on. Louis Rossman has a good channel on that. He lives in New York, and he repairs like iPhones and stuff like that. And he says it gets so hard to do that now. And he's an advocate, like, for right to repair. How great would it be if we used interchangeable parts across most durable goods? 3D printing will help. It will help. And one of the things that happened with, I wrote about it in the Velocity of Information, it was that the the patent holders, right, kind of gave like a 3-month window where they pulled off and let people do like 3D printing of mask and ventilator parts and things like that. Um, so it was interesting that that happened. This kind of back off, this good for humanity thing. We kind of forget like that even happened. Um, so, and then, yeah, of course, it ended. But Zippy wrote to Elephant Armpit. They had half logical comments, so I tried. I mean, a universal basic income could work if you open up IP rights and heavily damage, destroy the monopolies, but with them, prices would just keep going up. So, yeah, it's weird. Like, I don't know. I'll go over here. What is Bitcoin right now? Because Bitcoin, like, in the last day, has gone bananas. Is currently at 67,972. So, um, yeah, it's I don't know. There's some crazy stuff going on. Elephant Armpit. China limits online gaming too. I'd love to see the stats on my grandparents are now logging into games. Right, right. That's weird. Yeah, I mean, I video game like crazy when I was a kid. I mean, we didn't have online games, but I had notebooks spiral notebooks, and I would like play. I did all the sports games. I'd play like an entire 162 game baseball season against the computer, and then I would keep score and da 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 and all this stuff. And yeah, my friends and I, like, we did these tournaments, where we would play like everybody in the neighborhood and stuff like that back in the 80s. God, I loved, but hand-eye coordination, and I I mean, still did. I mean, got out and did stuff and things like that. But I loved video games. I regret that I got rid of my systems, and I don't play um, video games anymore. I mean, I was kind of the sports games. That's kind of where I was at. Um, but you're right. I mean, at some point in China, like, something's going to give there, right? Like, that's that younger generation just isn't going to go along with what's happening. So Zippy wrote Shelter in Paradise. That's why I loathe IP rights. It creates a process where monopolies control everything. Thus, anti consumerism is high. Yes. Bacon wrote, singing, being in my gas power car, looking at 5,000 Teslas circling the only EV charger. uh, yeah, that's funny. I mean, it's right. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the pace that they're intending, right, with the infrastructure bill to roll this stuff out. I said I would think logically vehicles would be electric at some point, but to try to force all of this, I guess that's what I'm seeing. Is just I don't understand it. I don't understand how it's going to have success. I mean, where people just won't be so frustrated they'll be like, screw it, with some of it. Zippy wrote, rich people are goofy like that. Yeah. Um, the goddamn bacon. So that is one expensive powertrain. I don't know if any of you guys saw earlier on my Twitter, but I won a bottle of whiskey from Old Humble Distilling Company in Texas in a drawing like a week ago, and it arrived today. So it's a custom, it's an artisan bottle, and then it's really cool. So I took a picture of it and then I sent it to the owner of the distillery. So I have like have this awesome bottle of whiskey, which I'm saving for a special occasion, which I don't know what that will be. Bacon, if you make it to Wisconsin, then that's the occasion. Um, Shelter in Paradise wrote, IP rights historically provided incentive to innovate. Now it hampers innovation. Yeah. So it's, and then how much of that kind of trying to get centralized, and does it become like an Amazon, or does it become a few companies that just start to dole out the IP? Like, even I'll tell you, writing the velocity of information. So I wrote School of Airs, and this was published in 2019. And the citations and the permissions to use images and interviews was pretty straightforward. There was like a small short document and people agreeing to things. When I wrote the velocity of information, and I had to get so many layers of permissions to use people's quotes, right? Similar stuff to what I did at School Affairs, but like the legal stuff, and then visuals, graphics. Like, I wanted to use, Phil Henry had provided me some pictures of nailmen, which are statues that had nails pounded in them during the war to steel like these soldiers. It was a, morale campaign. So he got these and had permission from the hell was it, the museum where he got the pictures from and these things, and the museum gave me permission, and my publisher's just like, it's this is too risky, man. Like, it's becoming international IP, and so I'm like, I just couldn't do it. Like, it just didn't make sense. And even like, I had a lot of my stuff created, where like Amy made those, like, we made them together. Like, I sketched them out, and then she created them. So there's so we have those. Like, there's nobody who can say like, this isn't yours. And then we're both cited in those, and then Amy signed saying that she doesn't own creative content rights to these. Like she was, but but yeah, so like I got permission to use a picture of the Oroville Dam that was labeled by the engineering firm that did the study on the failure of the dam in 2017. So like I contacted the firm and they had permission. The photo was given to them by the Department of Water to use this any way that they wanted. Then they modified the photo with these um, labelings. Anyway, so I got permission from the head engineer of the study and all of that, and that got so damn complicated. Like I was ready to just pull the picture from the book, and it wasn't really probably essential, but I'm like, God, I said, you know, because you're afraid, like, can they come back and say, well, you don't have the rights to use this picture, and it originally was I mean, but I had it, and then even I think in the note, in the end note, I got very descriptive, like that, the engineer had indicate, he got permission, and this is where the photo was given for any use for public use, and then their modifications, and he was giving me all of this, and I have the documentation, and so I mean, be fine, right? Like if there was ever a challenge on that, there's so much, there's not going to be, um, but the book itself had at the very end all these legal hurdles to get it through too. Like anybody I interviewed in the book, at the very end, like I had to give them what I wrote about them, and if they had to sign off that they were okay with it, right? That they weren't going to challenge that it was misrepresented or it could damage their reputation. Because like, what if you wrote something about where someone thought, electric vehicles or whatever was crazy or something like that, and you cite them in the book, and then like that gets out there and they're saying this person is anti-innovation and they're against whatever, and suddenly they become this recipient of cancel culture. And so like the publisher is very concerned about that. They're like, so basically these people have to sign off saying, yeah, if someone interprets what I said in a way that impacts my career, me or personally, or this, I'm not going to hold the author or the publisher liable. um, but I mean, just how that changed in 3 years was through the roof. Like, it's almost prohibitive to be creative in a nonfiction environment, right? To do stuff like this in 471 endnotes, because if I write fiction, if I'm a fiction author, um, it's much less likely I would be sued, if I'm creating characters out of my mind and scenes and stuff like this, and people can say like it's similar to whatever's out there, but it's much less likely that that would happen. But when you're doing nonfiction and you're 471 citations and verbatim quote interviews, from people, I have all these recorded. I have every transcribed interview. I have every, and there won't be any problems. Like it's very very thorough, but like the barrier to do that today is so much higher than it was just 3 years ago. And now I can't even imagine what it would be like if I did another book in another 3 years. Like it's almost like the publishers would require you to get like pre-permissions, and I don't. Um, so and I've shared this with people. I said I think it's a lot. I'm very fortunate the book is coming out now, because I don't think I could feasibly write it, and I don't even know if a publisher would take a risk on it in 3 years. Um, and as Zippy said, because of like a big part of it's the IP stuff, or how the shifting sands, kind of as Elephant Armpit was saying, of how things can be interpreted. Um, so I feel like I have a win. Like I was able to get through this really critical thinking, punchy book. Um, it's extremely thought provoking, and but it's the timing of it. Again, if I I just don't think it would have happened. I don't, but so Bacon, Bacon wrote, let's go to Wisconsin. Bacon party, woo! I'll tell you, Atham wrote that. Um, I do want to, kind of like Masculine Geek, with their different seaside adventures and Salt Lake adventures and things like that. I do want to in the next year meet up with some of you guys because especially with the book. And one thing is like eh, I want to get out to Pennsylvania because I've never been to Gettysburg. I'm 50 years old, for God's sakes. I don't know how many more years I'll be in good health or be around or whatever. But and I want to get out and I meet friends out there that really have kind of just been through the internet and see some of these things. But I mean, I would be I've kind of roughed this out in my mind too of like in Wisconsin, if we had a get together, like what that would look like. Um, and I for example, like about an hour from me, there's a resort on a golf course, but it's not an expensive ritzy area, but it's nice and it's like a town of like 5,000, has some restaurants and stuff. Um, but I was looking at that for a while and saying like if there was ever a get together, like I would if I could buy like a block of rooms. I don't know. It wouldn't be easy for anyone to fly, and you'd probably have to drive where this is at. I guess I don't know. But anyway, like that'd be cool because like you could drive right out on the golf course, like yeah, and just hang out. And whether you're a golfer or not, I mean, you could just golf for that, and just have like a 4 or 5 day thing. And there's enough to do like where this is at that's not related just to like going out golfing every day, and just do that. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like at my age, and I don't want to be saying that, but I mean, if I don't do these things now, I'm not going to do them. And I mean, you guys, I mean, Atham and Bacon. I mean, Bacon. When God, I mean, the time you met up with the group, right? And you had like the Darth Vader mask and stuff, and like they still talk about that. Like, I don't know who's there. If Aaron was there, like, but some they're like, that was one of the coolest things I ever saw. Um, but no, like that is and especially with the book, because part of it is like with I wanna go places and do it's not gonna be a lot of people turning out for these book events, but, um, it was I wanna do that with this. So, um, the city bureau to shelter in place. A long time ago, monopolies were landlocked via globalism. Wealth was devoured and shipped outside the nation. Yeah. Um Bacon wrote, "For those gearless transmissions, I could see that. Those take a lot of programming to work right, hence my comment about 90s cars." So, yeah, I won't get a CVT. Um, I have too many friends who are mechanics who just said either they work really well or they don't. I don't know. Maybe a CVT, right? It doesn't have gears, but maybe I don't know. I know a CVT, right? But um, it's I'm just not going to do that. So, Zippy wrote to shelter in place. That's why I love revenue sharing. Just take a 20% cut. So, yeah, your argument's sound, Zippy. I mean, you're right on with that. Um, Bacon wrote to Zippy, "My sentiments exactly as gas as IP goes. China has had people stealing corporate secrets forever. They're still barely able to scratch the market with their products." Yeah. So, as far as and Zippy wrote the Bacon, "I am trying to better plot out revenue sharing. I tend to overthink and ramble. You have a small feed." So, yep. Um, so a few things here, like subscribe. My subscribership is over 500. Yay! So, um, yeah, trying to get to 1,000 by April 15th when the book launches or the book is released, and hit the thumbs up and then in the comments. And some of you have been commenting, which I appreciate. And then I always respond back. Um, so I am going. Tonight is just a show because I was doing firewood all day, and yesterday was my birthday, and the day before I was teaching. But it's going to be a regular show with a regular topic. Tomorrow I'm DLD after dark. Then Friday mornings will be Face Validity Fridays, and that's where we go through headlines, and it's like, like the Fed is saying, yeah, it's 1.3% inflation, and I'll be like, that Face Validity, like, you know. I just whatever bought this, or I just had, I had this in my Amazon. Last year I made this purchase, and this is what it was, and now this is what it would be if I were to buy it right now. And just the whole calling out of the face validity, of what the media, or what things are being told. You're like, yeah, I'm not so sure. Yeah, face validity. Yeah, supply chains are coming back. Okay, but today I got coffee, and the only way I could get soup is if I put it in a coffee cup because they didn't have any of the soup things, and that's the first time I've ever seen that. And they're like, "Yeah, we don't know if we'll get these in." So, I, the Christ, they'll probably won't have coffee pretty soon. You have to take in a plastic bag. Um, so Bacon put DLD's Dark's link. So yeah, I'll be a guest on his show tomorrow, and that'll be all like kind of talking social credit score, and kind of like it's societal things and policy things, right? Like that are rapidly coming out, like Attorney General and Department of Justice things, like some November 4th deadlines that now policies will start coming out on surveillance and stuff like that. So I'm like, holy Christ. Yeah, like it's funny as I sometimes when I instruct my university students, these are all adults, like they're like my age, or and then whatever, but and I bring this up to them, and I actually have to pause and be like, I'm not trying to scare you, right? Like I'm not. And they're like, oh, we didn't know any of this was happening, like any of these types of systems. And I went through with my class on Saturday, and I have a 5-page document, and I provide it to them. And I put it together with a few lawyers. It was like brand new. I just did it for this class. And I'm like, here's what happens if your district gets sued and if you get named in a lawsuit. So let's say it's because the district decided to not mask students and staff, right? And then districts get sued, and parents said, my kid got sick and they wouldn't have got sick if you would have masked. So I'm suing you teacher, you administrator, you school board, and all that, which is actually happening, by the way. But um, so I had this document, and I went through this with the students, and I said, here's the deal. Like, my name is nowhere on this. None of the attorneys that worked on it. There's a big disclaimer up top saying that this is only for discussion and to help you understand the terminology, right? That's so in processes, right? As we talk, it's a law class. So tell any, do not try to convey that this is an actual analysis of what would actually happen in your situation, which somebody already did. Like their district got sued. And they actually told me, they gave the document to their legal counsel in the district, and they were using it to be advised. Um, Oh, Bacon was right. Does Lisa have a website? I don't know. I don't think she does. She works, yeah, just for that law, the Murphy or whatever. She's on LinkedIn, but she doesn't have a personal website, at least that I'm not aware of. And, um, but yeah, you did probably Thursday night. She's on the Old Humble, yeah, podcast. You probably have to check. Um, so this good. So Lisa Linney, who's a co-host of the Old Humble podcast. She's also an attorney, and she has a specialty area, so she helps people preserve evidence and prepare them with as she describes it for trial. So she's a great person to know. Um, so anyway, I was going through this. So it's the last day of class, the legal class with the students, and I said, I'm going to tell you how this is playing out, right? So if so we go through it, and I'm starting to say, like, here's the terms you're going to look for, like if it's declaratory or if it's injunctive. I'm like, that's usually not very bad. Declaratory just means, like, a judge would say everybody has to wear a mask, right? In this example. And injunction would mean, like, you'd have to stop something, right? You'd have to stop what you're doing. No, so negligence, things like that, that's different. That can be fines and things, or if it's criminal, right? If somebody hits somebody, or somebody gets, um, injured because there was something well known and it wasn't addressed right. Like a staff member that had a drinking problem and they end up, taking driving a van for a school event and crashing it. But anyway, so I'm like, here's what it looks like if you're the recipient of a lawsuit. Like your email, you'll be separated from your email and your drive, like in these districts, because all of that evidence, everything there has to be captured. So like your lawyer comes in and they make copies of all of this stuff. So I'm like, so like don't freak out when you if you get to work and your district been served a lawsuit and suddenly you can't get anything and you're like, oh god, I'm the principal. And like I talked to staff and we did an in-service on mask and also like questions if kids weren't wearing mask, and we did that after school. And but it's like I emailed staff on that, or I have my notes for it in my drive and I can't get to my drive. And so it's like that stuff will work itself out, work it pretty fast, but create a lot of what's called evidence, right? Like if you're so one of the things, so what does a district do if they're sued about mask decision? So the district has to the parent first has to overcome immunity of the district, which is very rare that they would do that. But the question would be, how did the district inform its decisions? How did it learn about the risk of COVID and the percentage of kids that if they test positive, that then they should go to masking? Like, was it CDC? Was it local health? Was it through nurses? Was it through, and usually government sources are considered more credible in law, but so that you've considered multiple sources at different points in time and that you've discussed these. You have records of the discussions, especially at board meetings, open meetings. It's on your agenda and it's in your minutes. So I said, but like not everybody does this, right? So if you just come in and they're saying like, why did you make this decision? Well, the question in law isn't did you make the right decision or not, because you're allowed to make decisions as a board of education or a superintendent. It's how did you get information to inform those decisions? Like with this coronavirus, it'd be CDC, National Institute of Health, local doctors, it could be a state department of instruction, county health, whatever it is. But you can demonstrate you have that and that you've deliberated upon that, and then you're pretty much fine, right? But I said, if you don't have that and they're just asking, you're like, we just did it because like the neighboring district did it, or we thought, we kind of just sensed like this is what our community, or we surveyed our community and this is what they wanted. I'm like, oh God, that's a bad move. I mean, because your community, if you survey your parents don't know. I mean, your parents might just say, I want kids back. But I mean, it's like you wouldn't survey your community saying, how many fire trucks should we have? Like, that'd be like 7. Well, well, why? I mean, they don't know. I mean, like the pumping capacity of the truck and the different, hazmat stuff. I mean, it's just so that's where really was working with them of saying, you know, it's process. You have to go through process due diligence and you have to document that because it's evidence. And you will never remember this ever because life moves too fast. People don't document things. And I said, even things like you're ordering more soap or more sanitizer for your schools or Lysol or whatever the hell it is, cleaners, that will show up in your fiscal records. These are all pieces of evidence, right? That go along that you think about. But yeah, people don't, they'll show me board minutes or we'll watch board meetings that they have because they're mostly recorded now. And then I'll watch some of them and say like, hey, look, let's look at this point. Like when it got into discussion, like I looked at the minutes and the minutes don't reflect what was in the discussion, right? Or someone comes up and they talk to the board about something and it just says, like this person environmental services person gave a presentation about disinfecting schools. And it's like, that's it. You don't have the copy of the presentation. You don't have the notes. You don't have the questions that might have happened from the board, or it's like, board member asked question, what question, like all of that. So like we really get it down. And then, but no one else is telling these people what to do. And as I said, it's all new. Like no one has a pandemic they can refer back to of saying, this is what I did in my first pandemic. Um, Elephant Armpit wrote to Bacon. Is that your show? I'd like to check out your content. So, Bacon, if you haven't done already, put your content out there for your show. Bacon show is Friday nights at 10 Central. Um, yeah, and Elephant Armpit, cool, thanks. So I'll be on Dark show tomorrow night, which I'm looking forward to. Like I love being on shows. Um, and Dark just had his 100th episode. Zippy, I keep getting sidetracked with stuff. I'm getting new video out, less artsy. Deplatforming is the book burning of the modern age. Yeah. So thankfully I haven't been deplatforming. As everybody knows, right? Like when I was writing the book, when the book really was, I knew then it was going to happen, and I had to back off of social media because also with a publishing contract and things like this, until you have an accepted work and things, you have to really measure what you put out there, because when you have that contract, signed, um, you can't have controversy or things that you engage in. Um, so that's where I was just being really safe and limiting my what I was doing on social media to just kind of just take that variable out. Um, Sippy to bacon. I hope not. It's not that good. I fell out. My next video is monopolism is not capitalism. It's 2 minutes long. So, wow. All right. Well, everybody, it is 2 in the morning, which actually feels not bad. It's kind of weird because I was tired like at the start of doing this because of all of the moving of the firewood stuff like that, and now I'm like pretty alert. So doesn't feel like a 2 in the morning, but I actually don't have to get up early for anything. I just have to get the firewood down here. Tomorrow is kind of all on my schedule. I got all the leaf stuff taken care of, so I am good. Well, everybody, thank you for the 16 thumbs up. I appreciate that. And yeah, the 508 subscribers is awesome to be over the 500 mark. And you know, it's always appreciate the interaction, with everybody in the audience. Zippy, Elfin Armpit, Bacon, yeah, Solitude Athams. So yeah, sounds good. All right, so Friday morning is going to be Face Validity Friday, and still kind of working on that 3 a.m. Oh my God, Zippy. So yeah, time. So I learned early on to let the audience decide that. So yeah. All right. Well, everybody, this is your good friend, the safety guy. Let me do this. No, God, I don't want. Uh, um, no, here. All right. I'm trying to. Uh, well, okay. Here, here, here I am on a dollar bill. No, that's not what I'm trying to do. Um, I don't know. Well, I was trying to do where it said the end, but it's not happening. So, so I will just say it. Take care, everybody. I very much appreciate everybody in the chat. Everybody who has follows, talks about the work that I do. The interest really makes it worthwhile. So I appreciate that. So have a great day. Get some sleep. Take care. And this is the Safety Doc out. Goodbye, everybody. It's your Safety Doc buddy here. All right. Thanks.